Well, friends, here we are again. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. This is another incredible, fun episode of the Mike Seibert Radio Podcast live stream. I am your host, and tonight we are going to talk about Superman and the Fantastic Four, two movies that I think are more similar than they are different, despite being made by two different production companies based on two different competing comic book properties. I think the movies have more in common than they don't. And like I had mentioned in my previous live stream and podcast, and incidentally, if you want to go back and check out my time at Seibfest, where I teased out some of this stuff, that is available on my YouTube channel and Facebook and wherever the heck else it was streaming. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Anthony Bricali, tfu.info. And if you're playing the MSRP drinking game, well, it's your first opportunity to take a sip. But Anthony hit me up on Blue Sky. Sorry, there was ice in there. We got that good ice at work, so it's it's kind of like the pebble ice a little bit. But anyway, sorry. So anyway, he hit me up on Blue Sky and he said, I'm looking forward to hearing the podcast that's actually about what you did at Seibfest. That's just mean. Of course, referring to the, almost 3-hour video I did where I showed off a bunch of toys and talked about the folks I chatted with and visited, but apparently I didn't get into what I actually did. And actually, I'm going to push back on that a little bit because I think I talked about what I did. I went to Seibfest and I hung out with all those people that I talked about, and I went to all those tables that I talked about. But no, I just ran around and did friendship and bought a bunch of toys. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I sat in for a couple panels and yeah, I don't know, but he also puts in a laughing face emoji. So maybe he's being facetious there. So I don't know. But anyway, I just I thought that was pretty funny. So the quick recap, as I had talked about in my previous show, I've been I've been disturbed. I was down with the sickness. Oh, waka kaka. Can I get a waka kaka in the chat? No, but I've been I've had so much that I've wanted to talk about recently, and I feel like I haven't had the time or the energy to do it. So now that I'm feeling better and kind of reinvigorated, last show I wanted to talk about toys. Today I kind of want to talk about media. And the headline is obviously Superman and the Fantastic Four. That's some stuff I'll be talking about. I'll talk about some of the other movies I've seen and maybe some other stuff as well. Let's go to the chat right off the bat. Travis says, I have not seen F4, so I'm not sure how long I will hang out, but I'm excited to hear your hot takes. Smiley face. My cousin Jeremy writes, I love the Mike Seibert smiley face. Oh, that's a laughy guy. Yeah, Travis, I think you'll be okay. In terms of, I'm not going to get, I always talk about in these shows how deep into spoilers I'm going to go. And it's fascinating to me how the movie discussion, media discourse has changed over the last several years. I remember almost 10 years ago when I started listening to podcasts and maybe even watching videos on YouTube, and there was always some kind of embargo. But then somewhere along the way, the culture changed to where now it's I'm getting spoilers on Maine from folks who have seen advanced screenings and stuff. And I've gotten feedback when I when I do early reviews, folks saying well, but you were too vague and didn't really tell me anything about the movie. So now I'm in this weird neither space where frankly, I don't know what people want. Do they want exhaustive thorough dissertations of the movie and plot and Easter eggs? Do they want it more vague? And I've realized that over the last few years that I've burnt up a lot of real estate trying to like make demarcation lines of like, oh man, this first part is going to be spoiler free, but oh man, I will tell you when you could punch out, and three, two, one. Now we're talking spoilers. Bucky is the Winter Soldier. Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. Oh man, but spoiler alert. I think being a fan of Kevin Smith's podcasts have kind of screwed up my brain in terms of like oversharing spoiler warnings. So I think what I'm going to try to do is like, yeah, for the most part, I'll talk about things in vague terms. There are some very specific things I will want to talk about for both movies. So I don't know. I guess I would advise folks who haven't seen either movie to maybe check this out after they've seen the movies, because I'm sure even conversation about the movie in vague terms ends up, if not hard spoiling things, then at least soft spoiling them. So, like, I've talked about this so many times, but like times that I've listened to review podcasts, I've learned that I'm better off, for my taste, just not listening to that episode until either I've seen the movie or I don't care. And like, I just want to hear the host talk. Like, I mean, I do that all the time. Like I listen to a number of shows that talk about movies I haven't seen. Like, I'm a huge fan of We Hate Movies, and they just recently did an episode on the 2015 Fantastic Four, a movie I have not seen. But I can still enjoy their podcast talking about it. And they do, go into, plot discussions and things like that. I also listen to Blank Check, where it's a podcast about director filmographies. And sometimes they're movies that I haven't seen. There's other times they're movies that I haven't seen in a long time. But I'm not necessarily doing like a fresh viewing for my enjoyment of the podcast. So I guess I it's buyer beware. We'll go back to the chat here. Jeremy, vague is best, exclamation point. Not specifically wrong. I ain't here to tell people how to live. Travis, back in the chat. This is why I don't watch YouTube reviewers. They basically tell you what the movie is. The worst is Nostalgia Critic. IMO, if the movie is out, just tell how it feels and what is not working. And I agree with that. First of all, headline news, Nostalgia Critic is still doing goodness. I had no idea. I mostly know Nostalgia Critic from the memes, like the old stuff. But yeah, and what to Travis's point, if the movie is just out, tell how it feels and what is working. I agree with that, and I did that for a fair amount of time. Like there would be times like I would record in my car on my commute to work, like using like Bluetooth headphones, and I was specifically limited by time because what I would discover is like if I just talk about how I felt and things like that, it's almost not enough for folks that consume my show specifically. It's hard to talk for just throwing it out there a couple hours about like, yeah, I like how the movie made me feel, that kind of thing. So inevitably, I'm sure there'll be some details that come up. But yeah, I like talking about vibes and feelings and not necessarily going plot point by plot point, beat by beat. Travis again in the chat. Honestly, I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. I just wanted to support your stream. If you get any creamy, I'll turn off your audio. That's a good policy there. Also check out Travis has got all kinds of stuff coming up. There's some Kickstarters that I think I've been privy to that I can't talk about. But I'm sure I'll have the opportunity to share those on socials at some point. And the Kickstarter for the Starlight graphic novel is over, so hopefully you got in on that when that was going on. Yeah. Anyway, that's some other stuff going on there. Before I get into the movie discussion, I suppose. Let's see. Mini concert review. Let's start with that because it's kind of like a, again, media type of stuff, what I'm watching, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, things of that nature. I My wife and I just had the opportunity to see Bad Religion and the Dropkick Murphys recently in Tacoma. They played at Dune Peninsula at Point Defiance, which is a brand new outdoor amphitheater concert venue in Tacoma's Point Ruston neighborhood. In fact, it was funny. Greg Graffin, lead singer of Bad Religion, was bantering with Jay Bentley, the guitar player, about well, so this place is Tacoma, right? And Greg's like, no, it's Ruston. They call it Ruston here. So, getting some of those hyper local references, which I think is always a lot of fun. But that was the second ever show that venue had done. They've just opened for this season. They're only doing 5 shows, I believe. And 2 of them have already happened. In fact, maybe others have happened because this was a week ago that we had the opportunity to see the Summer of Discontent tour with Bad Religion and Dropkick Murphys. But anyway, I was kind of tracking this, and I was a little nervy because it's one, it's a venue I haven't been to. 2, it's a brand new venue, so you don't quite know what's what, where to park, where's, some of these life hacks, like folks will, have hacks for White River Amphitheater or Showbox Soto or whatever your favorite venue is. So, somebody's got a hack for it. But I didn't know any of that stuff. So kind of going in blind, it was kind of an interesting experience. But I came across a article in the Seattle Times that talked about the inaugural show, and it was some Americana country nostalgia type of act. And when I say Americana nostalgia, I mean, we're talking denim, scarves, stand up bass, not the guy from Rancid, but, real wholesome, like stuff you would hear at the Hoop-de-Doo Review if you go to Fort Wilderness at Disney World, that kind of thing, like old timey country, that kind of thing. So I kind of clutched my pearls a little bit. I'm like, goodness, you go from this nice young lady and her Americana nostalgia band to Bad Religion and the Dropkick Murphys. Those are very different. And I was thinking that, oh my goodness, this poor venue, these poor security people, they have no idea what they've gotten into. I had not seen Dropkick Murphys live before, but their shows and their fans have a reputation for being rowdy. And having been to a dozen Bad Religion shows, I catch them most every year when they come to town. And those shows for a veteran punk band, man, the crowd gets rowdy. And it's interesting because I feel like the generations continue, the gap gets wider. So as folks who look like me who are fans continue to get older, the young fans coming up continue to get younger. So it is a fascinating cross section. One of Lucky's favorite things to see was there was a group of kids that were were singing and being rowdy. They were rowdy during Bad Religion, and Lucky nudged me at one point during Dropkick, and they're they know the words. And I thought it was pretty cool. I enjoy kids enjoying music, that kind of thing, especially punk music, especially veteran punk music. That's good stuff there. But anyway, the venue was terrific. It was nice. It was clean, well organized, very easy to get through the ticket line, very easy to get through the merch line. It was a little hinky with the beverage line because basically they would have they had a half a dozen food trucks, and Lucky wanted lemonade. And I think I spent more time in the lemonade line than than anything else. It was faster to get a poster than to get lemonade. But and unfortunately, because I think the poor lemonade folks were kind of like, it was a really hot day. So I think the demand exceeded their ability to keep up. I think they were a little overwhelmed, maybe a little out of their depth. But anyway, and because of that, not as cold as we would like. Not a fan of tepid lemonade. But anyway, like, so, but the second largest line I was in was to not get into like the beer garden drinking area. But it was just for ID checks. And what was funny is the line was starting to get so long that people were peeling off of the serving area, cracking beers and whatnot, just to wristband people. And it's like, one lady pointed at me, she's like, yeah, come up and here you go. Here's your wristband. And I had my driver's license in my hand. It's like, you don't need that. And I would imagine, I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you get carded, like at the store, like this happens to me at Costco. Like, I will have my IDs. Sometimes they scan it, sometimes they don't. But like, my joke has always been like, they look at the ID and give it back to you, not because they're checking the date, but because they see that it starts with 19. Think about it. We're in the year of our Lord 2025. So well, what's 25 minus 21? That's 2001. So no, that's not it at all. 2004? Oh God, that's terrible. So people born in 2004, 2003. Math is hard. Anyway, you get the idea. It's like, if you see a 19, then yeah, you're old enough. And then for me, with an aggressively snowy beard, and I don't know, it's funny because like, I have to have Restream up so that I could see the chat as it's coming in. Incidentally, if you want to join in the chat, we're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Join in the chat and be part of the show. But the other side of it is that I'm looking at the video, so I'm seeing myself, and in this particular lighting, I see just how wispy and it's not even gray. My beard is just straight up white. And I don't know. I mean, maybe this isn't the evergreen look I thought it was. Maybe I start going back to being clean shaven. I don't know. Fun fact, back in 2015, back when the Seattle Seahawks were on their Super Bowl run and season into the playoffs, Russell Wilson at the time and some of the other players stopped shaving. Like, it was like a playoff thing. And I did the same thing because I'm a homer and a lame-o. And that was the first time that, like, I had actually like put effort into growing my beard out, and then I kept it. And now it's been 10 years. And sure, I've shaved it from time to time. I notoriously shave it at Halloween time for my Captain Pike Strange New Worlds light cosplay that I do. Shave the beard, keep the sideburns, that kind of thing. But anyway, just like this whole video experiment that I've been doing the last couple days make me realize it's like, ooh, I don't know, man. Maybe clean shaven would actually be better. But anyway, back to concert litigation and not beard origin stories. Travis in the chat, is the venue right next to the park entrance? I don't know the place, but I grew up from grade school to my sophomore year kicking around in Ruston and OMG math. So basically what it is like, so there's the new Point Ruston, well, new-ish Point Ruston, kind of like, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a mall. It's not a shopping center. It's not a community center, but it's like this whole waterfront thing where they've got condos and restaurants and everything. Basically, it's a very, very cool area that's really been built out. But beyond that, there's literally a peninsula that goes out, that's where they've built the concert venue. So basically, if you're walking away from like the development, like the movie theater and restaurants and all of that, it kind of forks. One direction is like the yacht club and marina, and then the other part of it is again, the titular Dune Peninsula, which prior to them building the concert venue, you could just walk it. In fact, actually, Lucky and I and our friend came up a couple years ago, and like the three of us walked like all the way out. So it was kind of a trip to see that. Oh, wait a sec, they built a giant stage there now. That's well, that's new. That's interesting. So, and topographically, it's like they've got like it's mostly grass, and they've got like a fenced in area for standing room only, and then it kind of like, you have like some like rolling hills, and that's where we sat to watch the concert. And because of that, you can, open container, like, you go to the tent after you get your ID checked, and they have a beer, wine, White Claw, whatever. And yeah, you can just not all that dissimilar to, say, Chateau Saint Michel, to where it's like, you can buy stuff from the winery or any number of vendors out there, and just get white girl wasted out there on the grass, and it's great. And again, it was a terrific time and very picturesque. Like, so as you're facing the watching the stage, you can see the waterfront out there, and you could see it was a crystal clear day, so you got like a magnificent view of Mount Rainier. I've put a couple photos up on my Facebook, but not a whole lot. I didn't take a whole bunch of pictures, just kind of trying to like be in the moment and stuff. And plus, we were so far away that it didn't, taking pictures of white guys running around on a stage isn't that spectacular. But it was a spectacular time. Yeah, there were two times that kind of cracked me up. So because you're out there on the water, you would have folks rolling up on their boats, and it's kind of an interesting compare and contrast between the two bands. So Greg Graffin, singer of Bad Religion, he's he looks like your dweeby nerdy professor turned punk rocker. Turns out it's the other way around. He was a punk rocker first, and then got his PhD and all that. Now he's a actual doctor and professor and all that other stuff. But anyway, like, so he looks like Mr. Garrison from South Park. But anyway, like, so they see boats out there in the water watching the show, and it's like, hey, they didn't pay, those darn freeloaders, and they need to buy a ticket and all that stuff. Very, very genteel and funny, and yeah, it was kind of funny. But then the singer for Dropkick Murphys comes out, and those boats have been there the whole time, and he's like, what the fook are those? Look at these fookin' billionaires in their yachts out there. Fookin' free for loaders. They need to pay their share, and get into some song about workers' rights and unions and whatnots. But no, it was just kind of funny, the different attitudes between the two frontmen. Pretty funny. But yeah, no, the both sets were terrific. If you would ask me to come up with a set list of 25 Bad Religion songs, it would come up very similar to this. It's mostly hits, a couple deep cuts, but they're also deep cuts that I really, really like. I have seen Bad Religion probably a dozen times, like I said, across maybe just as many years, about a dozen times in a dozen years. And I have never heard them play Cease off of the Gray Race live before. They've played it live before. They just haven't played it at shows that I've been to. And that was powerful for me, because like that is, it's probably in the middle of my top 10 favorite songs, but it has like a deep resonance to me. And it reminded me of the podcast I did with Taryn Daly about 5 years ago from KISW, co-host of the Daily Mig Show. At the time, she was doing nights and weekends. But anyway, like I know she is a huge Bad Religion fan as well. So we got together like during COVID. In fact, half of that podcast was us talking about her COVID era Pump House home studio. that she had constructed to be able to continue to do her radio show during COVID. Kind of a nice little time capsule. But anyway, I thought it was kind of funny that well, no, I didn't think it was funny at all. What am I talking about? No, we so she and I talked about our top 10 list, and she had her list, I had mine list. I would have to double check the set list, but I'm pretty sure they played all 10 of her top 10 because like it was very much, evergreen hits and whatnot. Mine was a little more obscure. I had some weird stuff that I put it on my list just as a platform to talk about it. My point being, I was talking about the song "Cease," and it's it's haunting. It's maudlin. It's sad. It's a sad punk rock song. And I had told her, and I had told on this podcast that like when my time comes and where my time is up and there's some kind of like gathering or celebration, I would like that song to be played. It's heart-wrenching. And so, but to hear it live in a rowdy outdoor venue, like sun is setting, fucking golden hour, I'm holding hands with my sweetie, and like it just like it hit me completely differently. Like it's a sad song that you feel good listening to. I don't think I'm explaining that very well, but like, I got like the clinchy throat lumps, but still it was just like it was a really powerful experience. It was definitely a highlight for me. But anyway, yeah, so they played for about 90 minutes. It's a co-headlining tour. So about equal time. But so yeah, Bad Religion was first, then Dropkick Murphys, and they were great. I mean, you forget how many people are in that band because like it's a big stage, but when you start putting almost a dozen people up there, it gets pretty rowdy, and especially with like a lot of like the traditional Irish instruments, like you got like a banjo guy and you got an accordion guy and you got a squeeze box guy, and so yeah, so it's like some of these are cumbersome instruments, but yeah, so it was but it was a trip. I mean, they both bands brought the energy, and it was an energetic crowd. You saw the pit open up a couple times. There was some crowd surfing, and it was just a lot of folks having a really great time. So much so to where I'm gonna take a look at the remaining shows, see if there's something else we want to go to. There's like some like Hawaiian reggae fusion guy coming up, and a couple of nothing I've heard of, but I would think that that's a venue that you go to for vibes. Maybe not necessarily for the music, but for being an outdoor venue, the acoustics were phenomenal. Like the sound is just terrific. And even being up on the hill, I felt like we could hear it clear as the folks right up front, maybe if not more. I mean, depending upon how like the sound travels and stuff. Because like there was a time like, so we left before Dropkick wrapped up, but because like it was a little bit of a walk to back to where we parked. But like, as we're rounding the corner, kind of going up to you could look over the Doom Peninsula and see the stage and the light show and still like the Mount Rainier shaded in pink and a sunset sky. Gorgeous. I'm just a spectacular night, but you could hear the music almost clear as day. It's like, as it's traveling over the yacht club up to the hill where we were parked over by Point Defiance. So, but anyway, like, so, maybe we'll get a boat or something and go out in the water and check that out. But no, it was, fantastic show, fantastic venue, and, would do again. Like, Bad Religion have played, their last two shows in Tacoma. They played Temple Theater a couple years ago and now this. So, hopefully they like Tacoma and like coming back because, the fewer shows I need to see in Seattle, the better. And yeah, I mean, Dropkick was really good, but yeah, I would like to see like a really good jazz show. that I think that would be a lot of fun. I want to go back to the chat here because Travis, being from the area, I think has some intel worth sharing. Jeremy says it's a new community center and says thank you for the description of the new Ruston Center. Perfect. But then Travis comes off the top rope. OMG, it's ASAR Art Arsco Island, you are going to die, all caps. And later says, the vibes are the toxins entering your body and destroying your body and mind. So it sounds like maybe I need to do a little more investigation, because I think maybe like you got like some Secret of the Ooze thing. Maybe they built the concert venue and the grassy knoll on top of like a toxic waste site or something like that. I don't know. Um, Everything must cease. Yes, absolutely. Poignant is I think a word I was looking for earlier. So anyway, I would like to see a jazz show there, very similar to the jazz festivals that Lucky and I used to go to at Chateau Saint Michel back in the day. We've been to a show or two at Marymore Park and find it lacking because it's just, just an unremarkable field. At least being at a winery, that's at least something. This kind of seems to split the difference, and maybe it's the toxic waste that makes it better. Oh, they built it on a toxic waste site. Perfect. Is there anything more punk rock than than your venue being on top of a toxic waste site? I don't think I understand how punk rock works. So anyway, enough of that. Keeping it in the category of music, a few weeks ago, I did a show with Michael Andrews, my co-host for Two Mikes, Too Furious, where we talk about Transformers Animated. But one of the other things that he is a huge fan of are the Michael Bay live action Transformers movies. And the launching point for us doing that show was the fact that Michael Bay has been announced to he's interested in directing another live action Transformers movie. And we got together to talk about that, how we feel about that, what that can mean, and do a lot of workshopping about what that actually could be. And I think we came up with some fun ideas, some zany ideas, some crazy stuff that could work, some stuff that wouldn't. Basically, I proposed it as an idea of a Halloween 2018 style legacy sequel where you go further in time, but it's a sequel only to the first one instead of being a sequel to the rest of them, because of his nostalgia and affection for those shows, for those movies. Michael Andrews wanted nothing to do with that. He's like, no, I want my gnarled, unwieldy, and contradictory continuity. I'm like, all right, fine. Well, maybe there's a way where we can workshop both of our ideas together, and it all still kind of works. I bring that up because one of the things that I had talked about is one of the bands and sounds that's most influential on not just the 2007 live action Transformers movie, but for the rest of that series as well, is the inclusion of music by Linkin Park. Sometimes it's music they've already done. Other times it's music they've produced specifically for the movie. And I got on like this whole kick. In fact, actually, this was the thing that kind of unlocked the entire concept for me, is the reemergence of Linkin Park with new lead singer Emily Armstrong. It has a similar but new sound to it. They've put out a whole album, and I'm talking about all this, kind of saying like what new Linkin Park sounds like is what, to me, a new live action Michael Bay Transformers movie would feel like to me. So that was my whole premise. And at that point of the time of us doing that show, I had listened to a handful of songs, and I had been on a rabbit hole of seeing various live performances, especially of live performances of songs from those movies, like, What I've Done and New Divide. And I'm sure there's others that I can't think of off the top of my head, as well as other, Linkin Park mainstays. I'm reluctant to say classics. I almost said classics, but it's like Linkin Park classics. That's probably not a sentence that anybody would ever say. But after that, I got on this kick where it's like, some of these songs were just kind of like earworming me. And I decided to pick up the new album called From Zero. The new album by Linkin Park with new singer Emily Armstrong. And it rips. I like it quite a lot. And it's interesting listening to so I got the special edition. It's a 2-disc thing where it's like I've learned that like the first disc is just the original album that they released last year, and then disc 2 is kind of an expanded EP. It has 3 songs not included on the album and then like 8 live performances. So it's a pretty darn good set, actually. I'm very pleased with it. And in fact, my hottest take is that I like the 3 songs on the second disc and the live performances, I think, better than the album proper. And I like the album proper quite a lot. So to me, that's kind of high praise. But digging into it, the thing that I like more is the range that Emily Armstrong has as a singer, because she's not doing just an impersonation, a ghoulish impression of Chester Bennington. She's in a lot of ways doing her own thing and kind of doing things that he couldn't do or would do differently. I'm reluctant to say, use the words better or worse, because I don't think that that's an appropriate comparison in this situation. It reminds me very much of AC/DC. And I think it's funny that 45 years later, I just saw this in my Facebook memories day before yesterday. The AC/DC's Back in Black album was released 45 years ago. And there are still people that will refer to singer Brian Johnson as quote unquote the new singer. He has been the new singer for 45 years. But it's a very similar situation in that like the original singer tragically passes away. Not at all similar circumstances, but it could be argued that Bon Scott's situation was kind of self-imposed also, not trying to equate drunken mischief and irresponsibility with tragic suicide, but still, I think it's because Bon Scott was a troubled dude, and but anyway, it's a similar situation where you have these impossible shoes to fill, and what do? You bring in somebody who could evoke that spirit while still doing their own thing. So I feel very much so that AC/DC's Brian Johnson and Linkin Park's Emily Armstrong have a lot in common in that kind of thing. Not unlike Superman and the Fantastic Four that I promise I will talk about eventually. But no, I really dig the album, and I really dig the range. Because like there are some songs that are just straight up screamo songs. There are some that are smooth, for lack of a better term. Like Emily Armstrong could have a very like gentle female singing voice. And it's some really really good stuff. Jeremy in the chat here says, love the concept of Linkin Park, almost like AC/DC dealing with the concept of some of the movies in the past. Lest we forget that AC/DC was the soundtrack for Maximum Overdrive back in the day, back in 1986, that Stephen King movie. That is not particularly good, but is funner than you remember. Emilio Estevez fights a semi truck that looks like the Green Goblin in that one. It's a lot of fun, but it's AC/DC music all throughout, and it kind of adds to the texture of it. But anyway, so I was glad to check out this new Linkin Park album, and I really dig it. So I would be excited to hear more of it. And as I listen to more of it, it even crystallizes even more my notion that like their sound is what a new live action Michael Bay Transformers movie would feel like, that kind of thing. Cause like there's, different themes and all kinds of different stuff going on there. At the same time, because Amazon was having a sale, I also picked up, I was on a deluxe album kick. So I get the 2 disc deluxe version of Linkin Park's From Zero album, which I would recommend. If you don't have it already, get that one, because like of the 3 extra songs, was it Up From the Bottom, Unshatter, and Let You Fade, something about fading, I don't know, but it's very poignant. And there's like also some like interesting, not double entendre, but like similar wordplay type of thing. Let You Fade, I think is what it is. But there's a song in there that's Over Each Other. It's called Over Each Other, and it's kind of like a breakup song, but it's also a love song. But it's also like a song about friendship and stuff. What is the name of that? I gotta look this up. Linkin Park Euro and track listing from Euro listing. Let You Fade. That's what it is. The name of the song is Let You Fade, and it's a song from a certain point of view is about Chester, but it could also be about friends, relatives, and it's basically it's a poignant, moving, incredibly sad song about loss of loved ones and keeping your friends close and things like that. But anyway, the album's terrific. Highest recommend from Mike here. Go check that out. A album I would not recommend you check out is, as I said, I was on this deluxe album kick, and I picked up the deluxe expanded edition of Saviors, the latest album from Green Day. And I've been talking about this album for, it feels like a year. I really like Saviors. I really like I'm not traditionally a huge Green Day guy. Like there's whole swaths of their catalog that I just don't have and just haven't engaged with, and a lot of stuff that I just straight up don't like. But to recap, I last year had the opportunity to see them in concert when they were at T-Mobile Park here in Seattle, and it completely reinvigorated everything that I loved about Green Day. Basically, they played both Dookie and American Idiot in their entirety, but interstitially spaced with songs from the new album Saviors. And like, as they're playing these songs, because they played like a half dozen of those songs also, and I'm like, wait, I like this. And sure enough, I picked up the album shortly after seeing that concert and fell in love with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I a Green Day guy again? The answer to that is not as much, because I picked up the expanded version that has like, I don't know, a half dozen more tracks on it. And unlike what Linkin Park did, where they split it into 2 albums and put a bunch of live stuff on there, this is like 4 or 5 new songs and 2 acoustic versions of existing songs. And none of the new songs are any good. I didn't like any of them. And I didn't like the acoustic performances either, because it feels like the vocal track is the same as like the studio sessions for the album version. And then they just, redid the music, or, overlaid like, a acoustic track instead of the fully produced track. Real miss. I basically, like, I took it out of my CD player, put it back in the case, and put it in my console, and then put the regular one back in. Also, I don't know anything about compact disc technology, or compression or bit rates. You would think, being in the radio podcast business, that I would know about some of this stuff. I mean, I know a little bit, but listening to that CD, it almost feels like when you would watch an old VHS tape and like, remember, you would have like 3 recording speeds, you'd have like, SP, LP, and SLP. And, it's like, oh, it could, highest quality, but you can only record for 2 hours. Medium quality, is that, and then you would have lower quality, but you could tape more. So I could tape like, 9 hours of Mystery Science Theater 3000, but the quality would be garbage. This feels like, because it's got like upwards to like 19 tracks on it, that I can hear a step down in quality. And in fact, it sounds to me like I would love to do a side by side one of these times, but it feels like it's tempoed down like one step, or sped down one step. It feels like one step slower. Like I'm like bebopping and listening to it, and I'm just like, as I'm singing along, because I know a lot of these songs now, as I'm singing along, I find myself outpacing, like I'm off key. Well, I'm off key anyway because I can't sing, but I'm off from what I know the studio recording to be. So I know that there's something different. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's a speed, a pitch, a tempo, or what it is, but there's something different about it where it sounds and feels a step slower, which I don't like. So pick up From Zero from Linkin Park, get the deluxe version if you can. If you don't have the deluxe version of Saviors from Green Day, skip that. But if you don't have a copy of Saviors from Green Day, do pick it up, because it's terrific. I mean, a lot radio friendly hits. It's like, do you like The American Idiot? Do you like The Dookie? If you like those 2 albums, you're going to like Saviors quite a lot. If you don't like any of those albums and you don't like Green Day, then it's not for you. I went through a phase when Supercharged by The Offspring came out, and I think I had picked up Saviors after. No, I had been listening to Saviors for a while, and I went through a phase. I'm like, is Saviors a better album than Supercharged? I think it is, but yeah, it's interesting to compare what different veteran punk bands are doing and where their trajectory of growth is. I think Green Day being more a steady 3-piece, as opposed to The Offspring being Dexter and Noodles and a bunch of hired hands. I think that stability has, I would give the nod to Green Day over The Offspring. I think their music has grown more mature, but still punk in its own kind of way. Whereas I think Offspring are still doing a lot of the same stuff, which for me is great because I'm a huge fan of that stuff. So that kind of works for me. Jeremy in the chat points out, Def Leppard's greatest hits is the same way. That's fascinating. Because there's been a couple different Def Leppard's greatest hits. Like there's like a 2-disc version that I don't like because it has a lot of junk on it that I don't like. But in terms of Def Leppard's greatest hits, pick up Vault from like the mid 90s, because it gives you like the best of everything. It's a favorite of mine. Travis, the punk scene in Fantastic Four must have been long. Yes. All right. So I think with that, now that we're coming up on the 1 hour mark, I think everyone that's going to join us has joined us. Let's talk about some movies. Now, if you want to sound off in the chat about like what you've been listening to and what's been good, and how much of a loser I am for talking about mainstream radio punk and trying to put it off as punk, go right ahead. That's fine. It's not my fault. I like radio stuff. Anyway, let's start by talking about Superman, because it came out first. And I as I said before, I like both of these movies. And I think they are of a kind. And I think what makes them of a kind is, like, I think it's kind of perpetuating I'm reluctant to call it a genre or a subgenre of superhero movies, but as a pejorative, I kind of refer to these movies as hope core. Like, and it's kind of as a response to one of the elements of Superman that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, in that it has emphasis on, hopefulness and bright colors and, for lack of a better term, just being nice. Like, being nice is punk rock, that kind of thing. Kindness is punk rock, that kind of thing. And I wasn't expecting a lot from either of these movies, and I think it was more to my benefit to have lowered expectations. It also helps that all of these properties, whether it be Superman or the Fantastic Four, are characters that I enjoy, that I like, but they aren't my favorite. So as such, I'm free, for lack of a better term, to be more open-minded to changes and different takes and different interpretations and perhaps some subversions of expectations. I'm open to some of that stuff with characters and properties and situations that I'm not as precious about it. I'm not entirely precious about Superman, and I'm not as precious about Fantastic Four. But to recap, I'll tell a story, the same story I told on Tuesday during the live stream podcast. But I didn't see a early screening of Superman. The night of the press screening, the early advanced screening for media was on Lucky's birthday. So I wasn't going to be like, "Oh, hey, sweetie, how would you like to spend your birthday with me going to a movie?" That kind of thing. I mean, at least I was smart enough at that point to know that wasn't going to fly. So instead, I ended up seeing it opening weekend, during Seibfest weekend, sandwiched in between Seibfest and a Bremerton Air Show, and I went with my buddy Chandler, and this was entirely his idea. He reached out to me, asked me if I had seen Superman yet, him assuming that I had seen it at a advanced press screening, and I told him no, and he's like, "Well, how about we go Saturday after Seibfest?" And I was like, "Well, that could be a little bit of a lift. Lucky's out of town. I got to feed some animals." And, I litigated this in the previous episode. Sidebar. I've been telling you for coming up on 10 years now to make good choices. Obviously, I close out every episode with make good choices. And, the origin of that comes from a couple different spots. Maybe it's my niece quoting Freaky Friday when Jamie Lee Curtis is like, "Make good choices." And maybe I picked it up from there. That's probably the story I'm most comfortable with. But I am good about telling you to make good choices. I'm not always good about making good choices for myself. It's like, he could what is it from Revenge of the Sith or something like that, but like, something like, he had the power to, create life, but he couldn't save himself, or whatever the quote is. I feel that way about good choices. Like, I can empower you to make good choices while making poor choices on my own, while still subverting that a little bit when somebody is saying that they're making what could be construed as a bad choice. And I go, well, good choices or bad choices can be good choices depending upon how you look at it. If that's what you need to do at that time, it's a good choice for you. So I didn't do that either. So basically, like, Sci-Fest went until 5, and then the movie was at 7. So I, as I told you on Tuesday, I was initially planning on leaving Sci-Fest at like 3 or 4 or something like that. Go feed the cats and water the plants, and then rendezvous back up, and I'd have plenty of time to go to dinner. Instead, what we did is stayed until 5, waited for Apollo to pack up her artist table, and then the 3 of us went to dinner, which was lovely. But basically that gave me just enough time to sprint up the hill, not water the plants, feed the cats, put on some deodorant, change my shoes, and then run back out. And I made it to the movie theater at like, oh gosh, Chandler would probably remember. I want to say maybe like 20 after, because he and I had a conversation about like how long it was going to take to get from Kent to Federal Way where the movie was playing. And it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to make it now. I'm going to make it because there's going to be a half hour of trailers and commercials. And sure as shit, I was right. So because like I got there in time for like whatever the last trailer was or last commercial was, and I had time to sit and get comfy, and then the movie started. It was miraculous. It was a goddamn miracle. That kind of thing. And it's like Lucky has a way of centering me in a way that like when I'm not around her, I make these weird unhinged choices that I wouldn't if she was home waiting for me, that kind of thing. Like I wouldn't, like if she was there, I wouldn't say like, oh, hey, I'm just, go change my shirt and run back out for the bye. I don't know that there is a interesting immaturity that comes when you're on your own for a weekend. But anyway, so I sprinted to the movie, made it just in time, watched the movie, and I smiled, I chuckled, I laughed, and I was very open to what it was doing for me. And I was, and Chandler and I chatted, and he liked it, I liked it. And even then, it's so funny, like, it's been a few weeks now that like the, kind of like right-wing discourse of it, of like, oh, well, this is what it's saying politically. Superman is woke Superman, that kind of thing. It's like, I'm sorry, Superman has been woke since 1938. Like even when he's like busting gangsters and like bad husbands that hit their wives, that kind of thing. It's like, Superman has always been pretty woke in its own kind of way. There are folks that will try to tell you that Superman is inherently conservative, and I think those people are kind of crazy. And and you get stuff like Nobody's Favorite Superman, Dean Cain, talking about how like it's all woke and stuff, and yeah, it's just interesting to where I feel like this movie, Superman 2025, James Gunn Superman, is a movie that you can see what you want in it. And there was a couple things where I saw what I wanted. Like there was a couple things where I straight up elbowed Chandler because I'm like, I see what you did there. But in truth, the kind of magic trick that the movie does is that it is vague enough where it's not saying the thing that you think it is, but it still allows you to have the interpretation to imprint your own values and your own perspective on it. So, and that's kind of what, science fiction media is supposed to do. I think when movies get a little too messagey, and too overt, it starts to lose the thread. Trust the audience to imprint their own values on there and let them interpret the art, and don't interpret it, the way that the filmmaker wants you to. So whether the conflict depicted is an allegory for Russia and Ukraine or Israel and Gaza or whatever, it's not explicitly any of those. You can pick up interpretations, and you could say that this character is an analog for this political figure. I mean, it's there for the taking. I'm not going to say if you see that you're wrong. But what I'm saying though also is that the movie doesn't explicitly say that. It's like it's two fictional countries, one of which has been around since 1939. So that kind of thing. So but overall, I liked it, but I didn't love it. So I'm not kicking your door down, bursting through your screen saying Superman 2025 is the bestest movie in the history of ever. It isn't. It's far from it. But I do think it's like James Gunn himself has said in interviews, it's like, this is kind of the movie that we're kind of looking for now. it wears its hopefulness on its sleeve. Brightly colored, optimistic in tone, very similar to Fantastic Four when I get around to talking about that. And yeah, it made me feel good. But it made me feel good in the way that going to McDonald's makes me feel good. That kind of thing. It's like, I love a Big Mac. I love a quarter pounder with cheese. I love chicken McNuggets with the sweet and sour sauce. It reminds me of being 7 years old. That kind of thing. So it is kind of like a little bit of nostalgia-y, but like, you don't go to McDonald's for a fulfilling, satisfying meal. You know it's junk, and you know it's probably bad for you, and you know that there's probably going to be some digestive consequences. Eating McDonald's is not without consequence, and not that Superman gives you tummy trouble or anything like that, but there is a lack of depth to it. It is occasionally shallow, and I feel kind of similar to other movies that I've talked about and have seen this year. I think in a weird kind of way, and I don't know how to articulate this intellectually, but like I think it's better for it. I think a streamlined, more basic plot is to its benefit. Just like in kind of the same way that that F1 the movie kind of is, the Brad Pitt Formula One racing movie. Thin plot. Whereas like that movie is about visual spectacle, total immersion in the race cars and things like that. It's the most immersive race movie I've ever seen. It's terrific. They're going to re-release it in IMAX, and if you have the opportunity, check it out, because it is a sight to behold. But I've said that is thin on plot as well, and I've said at the time that it's to its benefit. Let me go back to the chat for a sec, kind of get my bearings back. Travis wrote, it sounds like both movies benefited from the Iron Man or Guardians of the Galaxy phenomenon for you. Yes, very much so. There's a version where like Iron Man the first was just a regular Paramount action movie. I don't think anybody anticipated or would have suspected that was the springboard for a whole goddamn cinematic universe and an entire subgenre of movies. It's incredibly influential, and it's one of those things, if you go back to it, it's kind of free of all the stuff that we hate about comic book movies now, where it's more interested in setting up sequels and Easter eggs and things like that. Sure, there's Easter eggs there. But it's not there on Front Street. Same thing with Guardians. Like, Guardians, I think, is very much of a kind with Fantastic Four in its approachability. Same thing with Superman, it being a James Gunn joint. I'll come back to that point in just a minute, because that reminds me of a springboard I wanted to talk about. Jeremy writes, seen the new movie and really wasn't impressed. Maybe the story has gotten too old for me, being in my 60s. And yes, I am a full liberal. Yes, Jeremy, we know. we have a full grasp of your politics. Yes, I understand. I don't disagree. But no, like I feel this way sometimes when something doesn't resonate with me. And like, cause like there's been some stuff I haven't liked, and I start to think like, am I too old for this? Have I outgrown this? Is this for me? And I've encountered that a lot. So I kind of understand where Jeremy is coming from. And this movie doesn't work for a lot of people. You talk to any average Snyder Bros, and this is like the dumbest, most simplistic thing on the earth, because Superman doesn't murder anybody, so therefore it's not good. I saw that Man of Steel when I was 13, and it really left an impression on me. Yay, Snyder! That kind of nonsense. That thing. But Travis also writes, it felt like the most like a Superman for that reason, a DC comic book or film that we have ever seen. I 100% agree. It feels like a comic book in a lot of ways, for good or ill. Like a lot of like the Metamorpho stuff was a little too much for me. But it's one of those things where you have to kind of give yourself over to the cartoonishness of it. It's like you either accept it or you don't. It's either grounded or it isn't. Oh, this is a comic book. This is a living comic book. great. And this is, I agree with Travis. I think this is the most comic book movie has felt like a comic book in a great long time. And spoilers for my conversation of Fantastic Four, that doesn't quite get there. It doesn't feel like a comic book in the same in the way that Superman does. I'll elaborate on that shortly. Travis, I left feeling lucky enough to have lived long enough to see this version of Superman and honestly Lex on screen. I agree. There are god tier versions of these characters. This movie is incredibly well cast, and I believe Superman more than the Fantastic Four. Its strength is in its cast. Holy moly, there's more there's more chats. I was too busy talking. I'll come back to those in just a moment. But like top to bottom, like everybody's good. I think David Cornsweet kind of embodies that kind of Golly Willikers gee whiz kind of doofy dork type of Superman. He doesn't get to be Clark Kent very much. And the movie is kind of less for it because like almost all of his interactions with Lois are as Superman. And in fact, like in one of my favorite scenes of the movie, it starts off with them being Lois and Clark, and just like, hanging out and talking. But then like when it gets into the interview sequence and he straightens his back up and firms his voice a little bit, he's Superman. And as far as I know, he never goes back to being Clark after that. So I think that's an aspect of the performance that's kind of missing. And I think that's an aspect of the story that is missing. It is missing a little bit of Clark's humanity, unfortunately, but that you could do more of that in future movies because quite frankly, this movie is already overstuffed. So, and that's one of the big problems with it. It's just too jam-packed with too many characters, too much going on. But back to the casting though, speaking of Lois, Rachel Brosnahan is probably now my favorite Lois Lane. And quietly, Lois Lane is kind of like weirdly one of my favorite comic book characters. And I don't exactly know why. I just, it's interesting to see a character from the 30s have kind of like a arc where she goes from being a, love interest, damsel in distress to kind of being, brassy and ballsy and mouthy, full of sass and moxie and all of that, to like where she needs to be rescued by Superman because she gets into trouble. Like she gets in over her head, that kind of thing, which is different than like even the late great Margot Kidder in Superman 1978, like jumping off of buildings just to get Superman's attention, that kind of thing. To me, Rachel Brosnahan is kind of like the fully realized idea of what I think Lois Lane should be. She should be a couple years older than Clark. Certainly a veteran, tough as nails journalist, like a goddamn journalist, that kind of thing. That's who Lois Lane is. And, have a little bit of a prickly nature with Clark, whereas this bumpkin farm boy comes in and gets like all these exclusives with Superman and stuff. So, that kind of burns her ass a little bit. I kind of, I like that aspect of it. But like as soon as Rachel Brosnahan was casted for this movie, Lucky and I were, I don't remember if the show was over, but we were like, neck deep into being super fans of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon. And that show is just phenomenal. And her performance as this character, this take no shit, aspiring stand-up comedian in the 60s, housewife turned household name, in the fiction of the universe, she becomes like the, a famous comedian. that kind of thing, all because of just, sheer will and grit and sass and moxie. And I was hoping that she was going to bring that energy to her performance as Lois Lane, as well as the voice, because like her Mrs. Maisel voice isn't her natural speaking voice. Like, she like, it pitches it up, and she like, much I don't know how to describe the Mrs. Maisel voice, because it's almost like a 1930s mob girl type of thing, like almost like a flapper girl. It's like, cigarettes, but it's not that. I'm describing it poorly, but there's a speed and a intensity to it that I really like. So that's what I was hoping that she was going to do as Lois, and it turns out it's not one to one. Lois Lane and Mrs. Maisel are not the same character, but there are similarities. Again, in terms of like, being tough and brassy, and again, taking no shit, that kind of thing. But like, so she's doing like a version of the voice, but not exactly the same voice. So it's not exactly the same performance, but man, you knocked my socks off. Like I really, really enjoy that performance. And then Travis was also talking about Lex Luthor. And Chandler had told me that he's not a big fan of Nicholas Hoult. And I don't know, I take him or leave him. Like I don't, he's quietly been like the anchor being of movies in like the 21st century here. I mean, like, he's Beast, he's in Mad Max, and Fury Road, and I forget what all he's been in, but he's been in like a bunch of stuff. And whereas most of us just remember of a certain age, we just remember him as the titular boy in About a Boy. But don't sleep on that movie too. It's really good. But anyway, like, I mean, I like Nicholas Hoult well enough, but I love this iteration of Lex Luthor, because it kind of is a distillation of various aspects of Lex Luthor that we've seen portrayed in other media. The thing that I love about this is that they remember that Lex Luthor is a mad scientist, and most contemporary Lex Luthors are just kind of like billionaire industrialist businessmen, and they kind of forget about the wacky super science stuff, like the stuff from like the 50s, the Silver Age. This movie is very Silver Age, in again, for good or ill. It's not to everybody's taste, but like when it colors with those brushes, I like it. I really enjoy this Lex Luthor, like his like the speech about envy and why he hates Superman is phenomenal. And like I appreciate a villain that has the self-awareness to know that he is a villain because he's a petty bitch, and knows it, and is empowered in that, and owns it. And but also has a mean streak and an evil streak, and does incredibly evil things. So it's not like, he's like, misunderstood or something like that. I like that he is portrayed as a bad dude. Like at a time where in contemporary fiction, there's a trend, a trope to make villains relatable and likable. Call it the Loki effect. It's like, oh, but Loki's a bad guy, but man, Tom Hiddleston is so charming and beguiling and just, fun and funny in that role. That, well, now we have to kind of like, rehab him a little bit and, kind of good him up a little bit. As opposed to just letting him be a villain. And that's the thing too. Like, I mean, like this is even like, like a Thanos thing. It's like, villains like, are justified in their evil, that kind of thing. Thanos was right that, some of those types of viewpoints. Shoot, I mean, there's even that in Transformers. Like in Transformers Earthspark, Megatron is just straight up a good guy. Like full on, like not even like, reluctantly rehabbed or anything like that. He's just in with the good guys. And you've seen aspects of that, like, in like Transformers 1, where it's kind of like an origin, but the thing is like it's the origin of how this good dude, D16, gets turned to evil, and it's through a series of bad choices, and how his heart hardens. Geez, that easy for me to say. Phrasing, by the way. But how this guy gets disaffected, and you end up relating with him almost more than the protagonist, Orion Pax Optimus Prime. And so when he says, "I'm done saving you," to his dipshit buddy Orion Pax, who one of my favorite scenes in Transformers 1 is the disdain in Brian Tyree Henry's vocal delivery when, spoilers for Transformers 1, where Optimus Prime emerges, having been empowered with the Matrix of Leadership. He's now Optimus Prime, and he just, with like a sneer, he's like, "Primus gave you the Matrix." And he's just like in disbelief, because like through this entire movie, Orion is just a bumbling dumbass. Whereas D is a hard worker and a rule follower, and he gets his entire world turned upside down. And by the time he ends up taking on the mantle of Megatron, you understand why. But the flip side of that is that you throw in with him. Like I've said before, that I don't know if we're not going to get it now for sure, but I've said that I almost don't want a sequel to Transformers 1, because I don't know if I can sit through a story where this version of Megatron that you've spent this entire movie building up to me, I don't know if I can buy off on that guy saying, "Well, now we attack the rocket base at sunrise. It's over, Prime. This is all food for my hunger, and my hunger is conquest," or whatever. I cannot be interested in hearing Brian Tyree Henry say those things as Megatron. My point being about Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is, this dude is just unabashedly evil. He's just a bad dude, and he knows he's a bad dude. And quite frankly, I think he likes being a bad dude. And I think that is refreshing for current superhero movies, where it's all about, how do we rehab a villain? How do we rehab anti-heroes? Just let a bad guy be a bad guy. Because like I've had conversations with folks at Transformers conventions talking about heroic Megatron, and it's like, get it away from me. I don't want it. I have more appetite for it than other fans, but I see where they're coming from, and just the sneering smugness, the arrogance that comes from Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor. It's juicy, it's tasty, it's succulent. It's a really fun performance that I really like quite a lot. And I like pretty much everybody else in the cast as well, because I realize I'm still on the tangent about casts. And the dude who plays Jimmy Olsen steals the show. I think that I like that he is kind of like a Michael Cera type, where he's like kind of a nebbish dweeb that can pull. I kind of like that character aspect, but that's one of those things that, like, on Front Street, I laughed and I liked it, but as soon as I left the theater, my mind, I'm like, oh, he's really mean to that girl, actually. Oh shoot, I kind of don't like that. That kind of thing. Like it's a James Gunn thing. Like it's very much like, we're going to do some broad humor, for a joke, but then when you think about the mean-spirited aspect of it, it's a little more hollow for me. I still like the character. I still think it's a really fun take. It's a different take than we've seen on for Jimmy Olsen. This certainly isn't a Jimmy Olsen who is masquerading as a FBI CIA operative who gets horrifically murdered in the extended director's cut of Batman versus Superman. And I'm just like, that's not in the movie. That doesn't count. Anyway, I just like throwing jabs at Snyder Bros when I can. But it's a fun take. Wendell Pierce as Perry White is brilliant casting that is underutilized. Like, in fact, I think his only contribution is to chomp cigars and say, "Don't call me Chief," which is fine. I'd like to see a little more. But again, maybe we'll see more in more movies. The dude who played Metamorpho is the same guy who is Mr. Zsasz in Gotham. And he's he's not albino, but he has alopecia. But he has an incredibly expressive face. And I like that the Metamorpho makeup is light and gentle enough to where he can still act and emote. Cause like when I see his eyes, it's like, I see that dude, and that dude's a pretty good actor. So good that I can't remember his name, and I don't have it in front of me, but anyway, like I thought he was really good in that. What Isabella Merced, I believe. I'm doing all this off the top of my head. I don't have notes in front of me. As a hot girl, total redemption arc for her, coming off of the disastrous Madam Web movie where she's barely has a presence in it. Not her fault, but she has nothing to do, and she's just nothing in that movie. The biggest crime of the Madam Web movie is that you somehow find a way to cast Sydney Sweeney, of the jeans commercials. You cast Sydney Sweeney as Julia Carpenter's Spider-Woman. One of like you cast one of like the most attractive young actors working today as one of the most attractive comic book characters. Spider-Woman was very much a favorite of mine growing up. It's like I already liked the black costume Spider-Man, but you tell me that there's like a lady version of it and she's got like, flaming red hair and stuff. Yeah, I really like the Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman, and somehow you with perfect casting managed to botch that and make it a nothing. I mean, like that movie should be taken to The Hague to answer for war crimes just for that alone. It's like how you waste that casting and make it just a whole bunch of nothing is a war crime. But no, like she's been a young actor for like a long time. Like she was like Dora the Explorer. She's the live action version. I didn't see it, but she is also one of the young leads in that Transformers movie that I never saw, that The Last Night, where in that trailer you feel like it's her movie. It's like, I'm going to stay and I'm going to fight them, and like I'm imagining like she teams up with Mark Wahlberg. Apparently not. Apparently after that scene, she's just like out of the movie or something. I don't know. I've never seen it, but anyway, like, so, but she's had a pretty lengthy career, and I like this take. It's fun. It's, it's snarky, and, I mean, there isn't a whole bunch to the character, but I like that we're doing, different versions of different characters. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. Holy mackerel. And I feel like I was the only person walking this earth when, like, one, the casting was announced, and then also that, like, when we started seeing costumes and set photos and stills, and like, when he shows up with that bowl cut, like, I was like, I know what they're doing. I know what this is. It's like he's a Keith Giffen drawing brought to life. He is Justice League International's Guy Gardner. And my only gripe with it is that, unfortunately, I'm as much of a Fillionaire as the rest. I love Nathan Fillion. even though I stopped watching that The Rookie 2 years ago because it's just too overwritten and too much soap opera melodrama for my taste. Not necessarily his fault, but his character is kind of stopped developing and growing, and for a show called The Rookie about an old guy who decides to become a rookie cop, what happens 6 years later when he's no longer a rookie cop? Diminishing returns. First few seasons, very good. Last few seasons, I don't know. I stopped watching. But anyway, the problem with Nathan Fillion is, unfortunately, he's getting a little too old. And I think he's a little too old for Guy Gardner. Like I like Guy being more of a younger punk, and him being an older punk is kind of cool also. But he nails it. Practically steals the show. And like apparently he's going to show up in that Lantern show along with Kyle Chandler and the other guy whose name I can't remember, the dude who's playing Jon Stewart. Dude, that's going to be, I might have to get HBO Max just to watch that, because that's going to be very much in my wheelhouse. But anyway, I said that Nathan Fillion almost steals the show. Because he almost steals the show. The guy who steals the show is Edie Gathegi as goddamn Mr. Terrific. There are so many people that are meeting this character for the first time, and I think it's great. I've enjoyed this iteration of the character in the comics for almost 20 years. With kind of like that Jeff Johns relaunch of the JSA, where, we're doing, contemporary versions of a lot of these legacy characters. And I love it for this guy, especially. Like, he's a cool actor. Like, he's been in like Justified and Blacklist and all kinds of stuff. But I think he gets like the ultimate redemption arc, because he's famously in that X-Men First Class movie, a movie I like for the most part, but one of the most regrettable things in it is he's a mutant character named Darwin, who apparently his mutant superpower is he can adapt to anything. And yet somehow Kevin Bacon finds a way to get him to not adapt, and he kills him. Very unceremoniously, very disappointing. And of course, he's the black guy that's the first guy to get killed. Bad optics, very unfortunate. So it's cool for this guy to walk into a room, any room, and just be the coolest motherfucker. And there's like a Guardians 2-esque scene with him where he, on one hand, is protecting Lois, but also is fighting off all the Luthor goons. And it's a cool sequence, but if I'm being honest, it doesn't quite get there. It's not quite the the Fox on the Run sequence, the Michael Rooker as Yondu scene from Guardians 2, a movie I largely don't like, but that scene rips. Anyway, but yeah, that's the freaking standout. Alan Tudyk continues to draw a paycheck for using the same damn voice for a robot character. Like, you can't tell me that Superman robot number 4 isn't just K2SO. It's the same damn voice, and power to him. Good for him. Like, I make that paper. I think like he's also kind of quietly one of like the highest grossing actors ever, because of like all the different franchises that he's in, usually as mouthy robots. Anyway, so he's a lot of fun, and I don't really have anything bad to say about the casting. Let me see. Let me go back to the chat here, because I've been neglecting it for a few while I've been ranting. Travis writes, "It's weird to hear people say that Superman lacks depth. I heard that same kind of thing over and over at San Diego Comic-Con, and I wonder what people expect from Superman. Of all the comic superheroes," we continue, "Superman has not really been known for depth. There have been some recent runs that are pretty great, but his books have always been lacking in depth. And that is what I wanted from Superman always." And I mostly agree, because it's a conundrum, isn't it? Because like I don't agree with the overall perception that Superman is a boring character, that he's OP, he's overpowered, and since he can do anything, that makes him boring. I don't believe that, because I think in those kinds of instances that you use your supporting cast to add depth. I think I'm also kind of in that camp that I think that this movie does kind of lack a little bit of depth. And as I've said, I kind of feel the same way about Fantastic Four. They are kind of a kind. And I think the difference is that I'm not expecting depth, but there is a superficial surface levelness to both of these movies that I don't dislike, but I do kind of find glaring. Let me go back to my McDonald's analogy, or perhaps a Chinese buffet type of thing. Like, it's good. Like, oh man, this orange chicken is really, really good. You get like a burst of flavor. It's very colorful, but it's not really sustaining. Now, I agree with Travis in that Superman isn't necessarily known for those types of stories, and certainly not like the depth of theme that, say, like you get from like Batman. But I think in James Gunn's efforts to make this lighter on its feet, there is an inherent shallowness to it. And again, depending upon what your interpretation, even listening to me, what your interpretation is whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I feel that it's kind of to its benefit. As I've said, I'm at risk of repeating myself, but like I can understand where people would come from saying lack of depth, but I can also understand the perspective of like, well, what are you expecting? And I remember saying, first of all, there were way too goddamn many trailers for this movie, to the point where it was showing too much. And unfortunately, I don't have the discipline to not watch something when it's put in front of me. Like, oh, sneak peeks, or, this, that, or the other thing. And I would watch it. And I started being distressed when I started seeing the same sequences over and over and over. And I was like, stop showing me the movie. But then something else clicked in me. I was like, because I am a huge fan of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Like, anytime there is Marvel discourse and the conversation becomes like, oh man, there's been no good Marvel MCU movie since that Endgame. And I always be like, put my hand up and be like, I would like to reacquaint you with a little movie called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And the needles that threads and the heartstrings that it tugs, there is an intangible thing about the way that James Gunn pulls off a movie. I have heard some of the criticism of the over stylization, saying that like in the same vein that we have Zack Snyder's Justice League, where it's on Front Street, that is the name of the movie, and we are making the director's voice and vibe and aesthetic synonymous with the texture of the movie. Is what I'm trying to say. It's like Zack Snyder's Justice League is Zack Snyder's Justice League. There are some that feel that this movie should be called James Gunn's Superman because of how strong his narrative voice is and how his style permeates through the movie. And while I don't entirely agree with that, I don't specifically disagree either, because this is a James Gunn movie. For me, in the best way possible. It doesn't quite reach the heights of, say, like a Guardians 3, but it at least scratches Guardians 1. And it certainly, captures a lot of the feel of the Suicide Squad, that kind of thing. I was going somewhere else with that, and I got so overwrought that I think I kind of lost the thread there. Because like I was watching the trailers, and I'm seeing the same sequences over and over and over and over again. And I was talking to a buddy of mine at work, and he's like, "Oh man, this movie is just going to be nothing, just empty calories." And I told him, I go, "Yes, I agree with you. I go, but I feel like there's something there. There's going to be some James Gunn something there that's not in these trailers that's really going to resonate with me. And I don't know if that entirely came to be, but there is more heart to it than folks that say it lacks depth. I think where it lacks in depth of sophistication of plot and story, it makes up for it in heart, as corny as that sounds. But I also feel that this is a movie that leans into how corny it is. I mean, like you got a freaking kaiju monster. It's got all kinds of like inherently silly things, and it's got things like pocket dimensions and prisons and all of this other stuff, and of course I wouldn't be able to mention anything about the movie without talking about the outrage monkey bot farm. It's like, I mean, obviously that's a shot across the bow at, the Snyder Bros and internet culture in general. But again, like I said a while ago, those things are there for you to see, but it's kind of like, it's almost like the cave, the haunted cave on Dagobah in the Empire Strikes Back, where Yoda tells Luke, it's like, man, you need to go in there and face whatever's in there. Well, what's in there? Only what you bring with you. And Luke goes to put on his gun belt, and Yoda's like, your weapons, you will not need them. And it's like, well, shit, well, what's in there? Only what you take in with you. Dude puts on the belt anyway, goes in there, ready for combat, brings out the lightsaber. Sure enough, Darth Vader steps out of the shadows, and Luke chooses violence, chops his head off, and wouldn't you know, oops, it's Luke under there the whole time, because basically it represents the path to the dark side. It's like, you will become Darth Vader because you have this gun belt on you and you bring in, your angst. And that, in a way, that's kind of how some of these interpretations in Superman are. It's like, because there were a number of times that I popped off because of what I brought with me. I'm like, I know what you're doing with the conflict. I know what you're doing with the outrage monkeys, that kind of thing. Whereas it's not there in the text. It might be there in the subtext, but it's my interpretation that I brought with me. Let's see. Back to the chat. Jeremy, I will say it was cast right. Yes. Oh, speaking of Chandler, we're in the chat. Not a fan of Holt, but he nailed Lex. Absolutely. Travis, I had the same challenge. I thought Holt was going to ruin it, but I left believing that Holt owns this role for me now. Crazy. We continue. We deserved a contemporary version of Great Caesar's ghost from Perry. Like, good googly moogly. Sorry, that made me pop. Because the majority of his dialogue is just "Don't call me chief," which is fine. But I will the only thing that Wendell Pierce got to do that was pretty cool is I liked how contemporary journalism is portrayed, because it's always at odds, because obviously they're working at a newspaper, and newspaper is as much of a dying medium as radio is. But you got to see kind of how that sausage gets made. I've heard people in the media say that that's not how that stuff works, but it looked convincing enough to me. I think if they were a radio station and they did some stuff, I would probably, pick some nits and things like that as well. But yeah, it's, just a couple more corny Perry-isms. But yeah, I love that sequence where they're like, okay, we'll write it and publish it, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. Cool sequence. Back to Chandler. I didn't know that was her, ! Mostly because I tune out The Last Night. She's good in The Last of Us. Okay, I haven't watched Last of Us. I saw a meme somewhere where it was like a grid of all the roles that Isabella Merced has been in. And yeah, she's got some genre creds. Maybe that's the meme we're talking about. Maybe she's in Last of Us and I didn't notice that. Travis, when I saw the guy costume on Nathan, I was like, all caps, yes, I get to hate this guy on screen. Please don't redeem this jerk, exclamation point. And he did not get redeemed. And that was the best. 1000% agreed. I like that Guy Gardner is just an asshole because that's who Guy Gardner is. Perfect. And I talked on social media, I think specifically on Twitter, where I was talking about like kind of where this universe could go, and inevitably the conversation becomes about Batman. Now, I think I have a couple different divergent points, and maybe I can distill some of them down. Or actually, before I get into Batman legislation, let me jump ahead. I want to see James Gunn's Batman or the DCU's Batman punch out Guy Gardner. Like, I need to see a recreation of that panel where in Justice League International, Batman lays out Guy Gardner with one punch. It's a very famous comic book panel. He's just like blam and just knocks him the hell out. And it's great. It's a great character moment for Batman. It's a great character moment for Guy Gardner. It's terrific. Not to be confused with Mr. Terrific, not to be confused with goddamn Mr. Terrific. Anyway, so looking to the future, the version of Batman I would like to see is kind of a version from the 1980s comic books. Most famously drawn by artist Jim Aparo, where I want to see a Batman that is wearing light gray and light blue. I would like to see a version of that suit, or kind of like, evergreen, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, evergreen Batman, the kind that they put on kids' party plates, napkins and tablecloths and your birthday stuff. That version of that evergreen 1980s Batman, I would like, before I leave this earth, to see that on screen with the giant yellow ass utility belt, that kind of thing. It may or may not have pouches on it. Maybe it just has tubes and capsules on it. I don't care, just as long as it's yellow and with a big fucking yellow oval for the bat symbol, that kind of thing. I would really like to see that, because for my the entirety of my adult life and into going back to being a kid, Batman has always had a black suit on screen, and man, was it cool in 1989. And sure, it was even cool in 2005, and it continues to be cool. But at a time where, if you ask me, hey, Mike, say something nice about the Snyderverse, one thing that I will say nice about Zack Snyder and that whole aesthetic is, and I don't hate Ben Affleck as Batman. In fact, I was kind of like pro Batfleck, when he was casted, and I maintain he's not the problem with those movies. But I liked when I first saw, it was either a trailer or a photo or something, where basically he's Frank Miller Batman with the giant fat bat symbol and all that. Not for that movie, sorry. Too soon to do Dark Knight Returns, but whatever. But I like that the bodysuit was gray. For being a comic book fan, I'm running out of things that I've never seen on screen before. And to that point, we'd been so accustomed to black on black on black. Does it come in black? And to see a gray bodysuit for Batman in itself was pretty great. And I can't say a nice thing about a movie I don't like, but there's an aspect of that where we almost got that blue and gray suit in The Flash. You'll forget that Batman shows up in reshoots of The Flash, but the gray bodysuit is even lighter gray, and the cape and cowl are it's blue. It's maybe dark navy or something like that, but it's not black. It is blue. And I remember watching that movie, before I yelled F you at the screen when the ghoul of Christopher Reeve showed up. But I remember being like, oh, this is almost something. This is almost a thing that I like. But like that suit sucks. It's like over designed. It's got all this weird tech stuff on it. And don't like it. But anyway, my point being is like that crystallized even further that I would love to see a light blue on light gray suit and with the trunks. At a point where in this universe, Superman wears his trunks on the outside, I would like to see that with Batman as well. And a conversation that me and Chandler had in the movie, like as the credits were rolling. I don't remember if it was me or if it was him, but one of the two of us said I would like to see Batman. And Chandler said like, well, I want to see a Batman that's all hard and stuff. And you would think that that's contrary to what I'm saying with like this lighter, but that's only in color and aesthetic, because don't forget, in the 80s, drawn by Jim Aparo, the late great Jim Aparo, R.I.P. That's the Death in the Family era. That's the Jason Todd era. That's the Dick Grayson Nightwing era. Like that Batman is hard as hell. Like the whole thing in the wake of Jason Todd's murder, he goes on a beaten streak to the point where it takes Tim Drake to come to him and say, like, hey, man, you have to have a Robin. I need to be Robin so that Batman has Robin. So you stop beating the hell out of these people, like you're going to kill somebody, that kind of thing. And so I would like a Batman that's not kill crazy, but the kind that is a skilled martial artist and a master detective. I also don't want Bat God. I don't, when I was in high school, I thought Grant Morrison's Batman in the JSA was the coolest thing ever. Because now you look at the memes, it's like, oh, well, Batman with planning, Batman could be anybody with planning. Sure. And I still kind of believe that as well. That's fine. But his level of planning and sophistication got so far, so far away from like what the character is. It's like, no, this guy's just Sherlock Holmes that can throw hands. In a way, he's kind of Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes. Like, to me, that's kind of what more evergreen Batman is. Like there's talk of like Alan Richardson playing Batman, the dude who plays Jack Reacher. And I love them Reacher shows. And I like that guy as Jack Reacher. Get him the hell away from Batman. I would like to see a Batman with a similar physique to Corn Sweat Superman. Also, I don't know what's going on with the design of that suit. Like, I mean, the dude isn't ripped. He's not Henry Cavill, but like, man, that suit is ill-fitting at times. A little over-designed for my taste. I don't care for the symbol. Like, we don't need to be doing Kingdom Come Superman right now. Let's just have it be explicitly an S as opposed to like a weird, Z/whatever. But those are minor nitpicks. But anyway, like the dude has trouble filling out that suit, and I don't know if it's a problem with him or with the suit or what. But like there are times where it's pretty glaring, and I'm just like, oh, this doesn't look right. Now, alternatively, look, what do I want? Do I want sculpted in muscles? No, I kind of don't like that. You get Henry Cavill, one of the most shredded dudes on this earth, like, just shredded like a julienne salad, that kind of thing. But like, and then they put him in a suit and then they sculpt in like plastic muscles and stuff. Real dumb, real waste. But anyway, that's what I would like to see from Batman. Like a Batman that is hard. That is the Dark Knight detective, but also isn't like, the bestest dude in the history of ever or whatever. I'm looking to see if I could find, because like, my buddy Greg had a really good counterpoint to what I was saying about Batman. And let me see if I can find it. It shouldn't be this far down. Holy smokes. Do I tweet a lot? Goodness gracious. Yeah. Kindness is punk rock. Yeah, I'll get to that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I tweeted something to the effect of like, folks have asked me what Batman I'd like to look like. Light blue on light gray is drawn by Jose Garcia Lopez and Jim Aparo. Greg responds to me, co-author of Transformers Reanimated, host of Unfunny Nerd Tangent, and drummer for 7-Day Weekends. If you find yourself in Australia, check them out. They are awesome. Greg says, I like the blue, but for a movie, I would go for a slightly darker Jim Lee blue. And I wrote back and said, I can mess with that too, along with the tiny Jim Lee kitty ears on the cowl. Because Jim Lee's Batman cowl ears, very short, very small. So Greg, I think, nails it. Let's go Neil Adams design, Jim Lee, Alex Sinclair color scheme. And I like that. That's I think that's a way to work. Just as long as it's gray and blue, I don't care how we get there. So that's that is my unsolicited thoughts on on Batman. Back to the chat. Travis, if it is as James Gunn's Superman, they would have killed Krypto. I think the movie lacks his style. The thing is, Gunn makes comic book movies well, and this is well-made comic book movie. Do you mean Zack Snyder? Is that what you mean? If it was Zack Snyder's Superman, they would have killed Krypto? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. But yeah, no, I agree with all that. Let's see. Try not to distract you with chat. So Fantastic Four. No, we'll get there. I still have a whole shitload of stuff to talk about with Superman. In fact, I didn't think I was going to have this much to say since it's been a couple weeks and I've talked to a lot of people already. So I'm surprised that all this is spilling out of me. One thing I want to talk about before, because again, I've got some notes and some other things that I wanted to talk about, and I think I made a couple jokes at the very beginning of the show a couple hours ago, but I saw one of the memes, if not the meme, that has come out of Superman is the notion of kindness is punk rock. I even tweeted like, as soon as I got out of the theater, I posted, I said, being a good dude is punk rock, that kind of thing. And it's like this whole subversion of what quote unquote punk rock actually is, and how Superman kind of, nails that. And this is the James Gunn thing that I was talking about, like where I told you a while ago, I'm like, I think there's something there for me. And the thing for me, the thing that resonates, and it's so corny and it's so dumb and it's borderline stupid and not even, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny if you stare at it long enough. But this whole perspective of niceness, of kindness, of being a good person, being punk rock, that got me. That I'm just like, God damn it. I like that notion. Because in context, let's go back to the beginning of this episode. I'm talking about seeing Bad Religion and the Dropkick Murphys, two veteran punk rock bands. And is Superman punk rock in the way that Bad Religion is? No. Is Superman punk rock the same way that Dropkick Murphys are? No, of course not. I don't think Superman would be like, oh, look at these fucking billionaires out in their fucking boats and their yachts. They should pay like the rest of us, that kind of thing. Not that at all. But I did a little bit of research and I want to share with you some of my findings. I actually kind of wrote some of this out. So don't mind me if I kind of get into kind of a chapter that I like to kind of call the ethos of punk rock, or why Superman is indeed punk rock. So, first of all, what is punk rock? Right. So I cobbled together some information from a couple different sources. Basically, punk rock is a music genre and a cultural movement that emerged in the mid-70s, primarily in the United States and the United Kingdom. It's characterized by fast, raw, and aggressive music with short songs, stripped down instrumentation, and often rebellious anti-establishment lyrics. Punk rock rejected the polished production and perceived excesses of mainstream rock, embracing a DIY ethos that prioritized energy, attitude, and accessibility over technical virtuosity. Listen to some of these things as I say them, and be thinking about how they might apply to Superman, or Superman 2025, or James Gunn's Superman. Musically, punk features loud, distorted guitars, simple chord progressions, fast tempos, and raw vocals, often shouted or screamed. Lyrics often tackle social, political, or personal themes with defiance, sarcasm, or nihilism, reflecting frustration with societal norms, authority, or consumerism. Beyond the music, punk rock sparked a broader subculture with distinct fashion like leather jackets, ripped clothes, spiked hair, etc., art, DIY zines, posters, and an ethos of individualism and resistance to conformity. It influenced fashion, visual art, and later genres of music like hardcore, post-punk, and alternative rock. The movement was rooted in a reaction to the bloated rock scene of the 70s, drawing inspiration from earlier rock acts like the Stooges and New York Dolls. Punk's DIY approach, self-producing records, booking shows, and creating zines, empowered anyone to participate regardless of skill or resources. While punk's initial wave faded in the early 80s, its influence persisted in music culture and attitudes, with some subgenres like pop punk and emo carrying its legacy forward. So that all seems pretty aggressive, right? Superman, with all of his gosh and golly willikers and great googly mooglies, that's not punk rock, right? So how can the idea of Superman and kindness be considered punk rock? Well, as I will continue to read from my collated research here, basically it flips the script. It flips traditional view of punk's aggression and rebellion into something more symbolic. So it's not literal. It's, we're dealing with symbolism and metaphor and analogy here. But punk rock at its core is about defying norms, challenging the status quo, and embracing authenticity over conformity. So here's kind of how Superman is kind of punk rock. Superman obviously is an iconic superhero, but he could be seen as punk rock not because of aggression, but because he embodies a radical rejection of cynicism and moral compromise, which can feel rebellious in a world often perceived as corrupt or apathetic. Superman's unwavering commitment to truth, justice, and helping others stands out in a modern context where anti-heroes and morally gray characters dominate. His earnest goodness challenges the quote-unquote edgy norm, making his idealism a form of rebellion. Now, in terms of DIY ethos, obviously Superman isn't booking gigs or making zines, but he does have a self-driven mission to protect humanity without seeking fame or reward, and that kind of aligns with the DIY spirit. Doing what you believe in, regardless of external validation, that's definitely punk. Let's not forget that Superman is an outsider, and he's an immigrant. In fact, he's a illegal immigrant alien, literally. So as such, living amongst humans, Superman's outsider perspective mirrors the punk subculture rejection of mainstream society. He operates outside of societal constraints, answering to his own moral code. In some interpretations, like in certain comic books, Superman's refusal to bend to corrupt systems like government overreach or corporate greed echoes punk's anti-establishment roots. For example, Superman being punk rock, it can be considered punk rock for his resistance to authoritarianism, citing moments where he stands up to oppressive forces. Now, I don't have the direct quote in front of me. Let me see if I can. Maybe that's the real punk rock. There we go. Okay. I wanted to find the specific quote because I think kindness is the new punk rock is this century's Luke, I am your father, in terms of how misquoted it is. but all of this comes from, so kindness is the new punk rock, kindness is the real punk rock. It comes from this discussion that Superman is having with Lois. And Lois is talking about how different they are. She's like, I'm a punk rock kid and you're Superman. And Clark says with all of the earnestness, I'm punk rock. And Lois laughs at him. And this I like, he says like, I like the Stranglefellows, the PODs, and the Mighty Crabjoys, obviously. Mighty Crabjoys is a fictional band. I don't know about Stranglefellows, but certainly referring to POD as the PODs certainly got me into a chuckle. But even Lois, who is a punk rocker, which I love that so much for her, but she says those are pop radio bands. They're not punk rock. Mighty Crabjoys suck. Anyway, but like the part that gets misquoted is Superman doesn't say kindness is punk rock. It's a response to what Lois says to him. She says, my point is, I question everything and everyone. You trust everyone and think everyone you ever met is like beautiful. And Superman, only in the way that Clark Kent Superman could deliver this line, he's like, maybe that's the real punk rock. And that hits me like a goddamn knife to the heart, because it's so earnest, but it's also corny and dumb and contrived, but I don't care because it's authentic, not unlike punk rock itself. So the notion of kindness being punk rock, it kind of recontextualizes punk's rebellion as a stand against the world that often rewards selfishness, division, and apathy. It's a rebellion against norms. And in society where negativity, trolling, and self-interest can dominate, especially online, choosing kindness is a radical act. It defies the expectation to be cynical, aggressive, or detached, much like how punk rejected polished excesses of 70s rock. Punk values raw, unfiltered expression. Kindness, when genuine, is an authentic rejection of performative toughness or cruelty, aligning with punk's emphasis on being true to oneself. How many hardcore songs, especially like straight edge hardcore, or like, real vegan hardcore, we're talking like, XVX over here. And that whole subgenre is about being true to yourself. Taking it back to community and kind of the DIY aesthetic. Punk's DIY ethos fostered tight-knit communities through shared values. Kindness builds community by prioritizing empathy and mutual support over competition, resonating with punk's grassroots spirit. Think of like small acts of kindness. Like we've seen the memes. Like, I have said something about Hope Corps, that kind of thing, helping a stranger, supporting a cause. All of those things feel subversive in our current cutthroat world. Like I don't have them in front of me, but there's memes of just like, I helped somebody carry their groceries today. And like the meme template is Superman at the end of the movie where he's content watching the home videos of his parents and his upbringing. Being nice is punk rock. Being kind is punk rock. Not being an asshole is punk rock. And so that's again, that theme has really stuck with me, maybe disproportionately so, because what have I been saying for these last couple hours? It's like, art is a reflection of the values you imprint on it. So maybe where I'm at personally in my life, entrenched in cynicism and fear mongering, that somebody that is so corny is to say that, viewing everyone as beautiful is the real punk rock. That's like, that is like a cold splash of water across my face. But, so you get the idea. Basically the entire, I guess, theme that I'm trying to grapple with and wrap my head around is that it's again, it's a subversion. It's a subversion of expectations, that kind of thing. So before I round out my chat on Superman, let me go back to the chat because it looks like Travis has posted a couple more things. No, I mean, if this movie was quote unquote James Gunn's Superman, he would have killed Crypto. He likes to do that in his movies. Cancer Mom, Girl Head getting shot, I Am Groot, Adam's Moms, Rocket's Friends. Perfect. I appreciate the clarification. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's an excellent distinction, and I didn't consider that. Travis continues. He uses that quote unquote killing off characters that matter tool in his movies and has since he started. He didn't do that here. And to me, that shows he respected the material. Brilliant observation. So I stand corrected in that notion that I shared that somebody else said that this should have been called James Gunn Superman. But yeah, point very well taken. You're absolutely right, because it kind of pulls a punch, doesn't it? Like it has a chance to be more edgy in a way that James Gunn's movies are. Like, is James Gunn growing up? Is that what it's like? Did he have to go through being a trauma guy to being a Marvel guy, or like, indie DIY guy to getting canceled, and to have like all of that experience of growing up and owning up to all that? It's like, yeah, no, those tweets were bad and I'm not that guy anymore. And that kind of thing. Maybe is Superman his most adult movie? I don't know about that. I would have to think about that. But that reminds me of some of the criticism. So I've been, pretty high on it. I mean, for a movie that I say that I like okay, and that I don't love, I seem to have a lot of things to say about it that I did like about it. But there's some other stuff that does kind of rub the wrong way. Like it is a PG-13 movie. And as such, it does have some of the Marvel-esque light profanity, but not as much. Like, I mean, again, like I complain about this every time there's a Marvel MCU movie that's PG-13, and it's just like everybody says shit all the time. It's shit, and to the point, again, with Guardians 3, we get like the first F-bomb, and again, so brilliantly deployed. Probably one of my favorite PG-13 F-bombs, but there's some profanity. There is some suggestive, subvertive stuff. I mean, like the whole secret harem thing, basically like, the whole message from Jor-El and Lara, Clark's Kryptonian parents. It's like, fuck bitches, get money, that kind of thing. And it's just like, you will take many wives and lay that pipe, get that bag. But it's one of those James Gunn things where it's like, it's a good joke. It's funny. You think about it, but then it's like, what I like though, is all of the tears of the conservatives of like in the, especially in like the right-wing media, maybe not conservative as much, but like you're like nerdrotics and your quarterings and all those fucks just shedding tears for the character assassination of Jor-El and the Kryptonian parents, like these are like, iconic characters that shouldn't be touched. Who cares? I mean, criminy. John Byrne was doing that in the 80s, like, cold and detached. And like, there's bits of dialogue in Man of Steel, the comic book, the post-crisis comic book, where it's like, well, yeah, so we're going to send him to conquer them, basically, right? Well, yeah, that kind of thing. Like, it's in the comics. I'm sorry that they're not, it's not, Russell Crowe or whatever. Incidentally, I got into it with somebody about whether Bradley Cooper being Jor-El is a spoiler or not. And like this was like I don't know, the day after I'd seen it, like Variety posted an article about Bradley Cooper being in the movie. I'm like, well, I'm glad I saw the movie already, because that's a spoiler. And I'm getting into this argument with somebody about whether it is or it isn't. And I'm like, look, I didn't have that knowledge going into the movie, and I was genuinely surprised when it happened. So therefore, it's a spoiler. So, and let's go back like 2.5 hours where I'm just like, oh golly, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, or it, because any kind of conversation about that is a spoiler of some sort for somebody. Other than like being on Front Street and saying, oh yeah, Supergirl is totally in this movie. It's like that would have been a spoiler, like, doing that on Front Street. But now I'm 2.5 hours in, not as much. I did like that sequence, by the way. And because I think in a James Gunn kind of way, I've heard people like right off the bat being mad about it, like, oh man, well they turned Supergirl into Lindsay Lohan or Amanda Bynes or whatever, and it's like, no, you don't get it. Read that Tom King Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and you'll have a better understanding of what the Supergirl movie is going to be and why this portrayal is, I think, a terrific, note perfect springboard for getting into that movie. And really, it is going to be a dealing with trauma movie. It is going to be a movie about like alcoholism and drug addiction and what we do to how we use substances to, mask our trauma and to deal with things. It's like that movie is going to capital S say some things in a way that this cameo kind of doesn't, but knowing where it's going, I can appreciate it from that perspective. But I can understand people that like say like, grew up on the CW Supergirl show and like, Melissa Benoist is their Supergirl. And it's like, well, but now they turned her into a joke. It's like, yes, but also no. Just be patient. Let the movies do their thing. But I think we're also kind of like in a phase of franchise fatigue. And I don't know if Superman, and even paired with Fantastic Four, if this is a remedy for cape fatigue. I think if you're tired of superhero movies, you're tired of superhero movies. And I don't think it refreshes it well enough. I'd have to think on that. For as much as I thought about like the punk rock thing, my take is a little undercooked. Like, I don't think this is a salve or a cure for cape fatigue or franchise fatigue. As I said before, it is kind of cinematic fast food. Enjoyable but forgettable might be a way to put it. The action sequences are fine, but not particularly original. As we already discussed, some of the characters are underutilized. We talked about Supergirl a little bit. We kind of talked about the Kryptonians, but we haven't talked about Ma and Pa Kent. And I leaned over to Chandler after when it was appropriate to start talking, and I leaned over to him and I said, I like that they're bumpkins. And there's a sincerity and an authenticity to that. There's a story that I don't have in front of me, but it involves like Howard Stern or somebody on the Howard Stern show whose parents are from Kansas. So they're like friends with James Gunn, and they're just like, okay, no, this is how people from Kansas are, that kind of thing. So apparently this characterization of the Kents from a certain point of view is authentic. But I just like that they are sweet, good people, because that's who the Kents are. That's who Jonathan and Martha Kent are. They don't have to be Kevin Costner, being like a goddamn specimen like everybody in a Zack Snyder movie is. Or even like a John Schneider from, Smallville and stuff. Like I kind of like that his parents are kind of schlub city. And like, who doesn't have a mom who yells at the phone like that? So like there's a weird amount of relatability there. But they're kind, they're nice people. They might not be the brightest bulbs. And incidentally, again, like in the wake of that, people have been like really cruel online, especially the Snyder Bros. But like, it's like, well, how could these bumpkins run a farm? Well, here's the other thing too. I couldn't tell. I think they actually have a ranch because they have cows. So maybe that's too big of legislation to put out here. But there are folks that have farms. There are folks that have ranches, and there's folks that have farms and ranches. I don't know if the Kents have both, but I know that the Kents have cows. I'm not seeing a whole lot of crops on the Kent farm. I saw more cows than corn. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's neither here nor there. Travis had something really good in the chat here, and I was hoping he was going to bring this up. I wrote Starlight, and I couldn't be happier for the use of Tom King's run. I only learned about it recently, but I have for years said trauma comes with powers, 100%, and that is one of the core themes of Travis's comic Starlight, where basically like what happens when child superheroes grow up and they become raver kids, and they brush up against interdimensional spider wizards. I should probably drop hey Travis. I'm yelling at him like he's next to me. I'm like, hey Travis, no, can folks get Starlight now that the Kickstarter is over? Is that like the only way they can get it? Like, is there a link I can drop in the chat? Let me know, or feel free and drop a link in the chat. Because like, yeah, I think it's a project that folks would really like. Travis again, my parents are like that. They likely live on farmland, but likely his dad works at a farm based on that double wide. Brilliant. Yeah, I should just have Travis host the show, because like this great observations. I'm just a dude fumbling around in the dark saying like, I liked it. It made me feel good. But yeah, I mean, there is some tone stuff. Some of the humor is a little cringe. Sometimes it's kind of cut from the Marvel template. It is occasionally kind of generic, but I don't know. I think calling Superman 2025 a Marvel wannabe, I think is false. I don't agree with that notion. But I do think it is overstuffed, and I do think it's a little too cluttered, overstuffed, too many characters, things like that. It tries to do too much, and I think it's one of those things where it's like it's a buffet, and it would be a buffet if you're an 80s kid that you're you're part of the clean plate club. It's like you got to eat everything on your plate. It's like, oh, but I'm stuffed. I'm not hungry anymore. That's what this movie is. It's like, one too many trips to the buffet. It's occasionally unfocused, a little bit chaotic. But yeah, I do like, though, I think one of my biggest criticisms going in was that, oh man, this is going to be a Batman and Robin situation. This is going to be a Batman Forever situation. Too damn many characters, and they don't know what to do with them. I don't think that too many characters is this movie's problem. I think it's just too much movie. And likewise, I don't think that an expanded runtime would benefit either. Like I've gotten into so many arguments with Snyder Bros about like the director's cut of Batman v Superman, and then of course Zack Snyder's Justice League. The perspective of longer is better. Ultimate edition of Batman v Superman is better because it's longer, and it's just like that just tells me that you can't do things concisely. There's a reason like why I'm hosting just like this open-ended live stream, because like I can't do this stuff on a clock. I mean, like I can respect a guest's time. It's like, hey man, do you got a heart out? And that kind of thing. But like this, I got nowhere to go. I got nothing to do. Shit, I've been talking for 2.5 hours and I still haven't gotten to Fantastic Four yet. So yeah, but like this is what you've told me you wanted. So, that kind of thing, just kind of like long form discussion. Like I could, I'm I'm not the guy with the hair and the jacket and can do a 6-minute review in front of a red background. It's just like I don't like that. I don't want that, and you don't want that either. So I don't know how I got on that tangent. Jesus Christ. But anyway, so I had asked Travis about Starlight, and the answer is not for a bit. It's going to trade. I'll keep you in the loop, though. I always try. So, and again, I will, always share that stuff like I always do, and encourage folks to check it out. Maybe when it comes out as trade, maybe we'll do another show with Travis and Greg, and yeah, talk. It's been a while since we've all talked about Starlight, so I think that would be a lot of fun. All right, so I already talked about. Yeah, I'm just running through my sheets here. I already talked about social commentary. The music, I think the music is almost a little too much because like it borrows from the John Williams 1978 score and does kind of like a watered down cover band version of it that's shrug fine. I don't dislike the score, but like there are times where like the theme like kicks in and it's just rocking. It's like, da da da, and I'm like, for this, the moment doesn't match what the music is starting to be. So I already talked about that. It's colorful, it's bright, it's quippy, and feels refreshing and modern. We talked about the emotional depth, heartfelt and fun tone. It's bright, breezy, and just campy enough. Because again, if you're going to lean into this Silver Age stuff, do it. That kind of thing. Yeah, and the chemistry is there also, especially between Lois and Clark. I mean, because there's some reports that they were like making out for like 4 hours or something like that, and I'm like, all right, that's fine. It's like, play on, player. That kind of thing. But that I think that'll do it for Superman. I'm ready for more. I'm ready for more of this universe. I'm excited to see what Peacemaker season 2 is going to be. I'm excited to see what more Creature Commandos could be. I like that. Again, this universe has a little bit of a punk attitude. Like it's got a little bit of a chip on its shoulders, and that's kind of okay. That's kind of fun. So again, 2 hours in, that's kind of my thoughts on Superman. Before I move on to the Fantastic Four, because I think that might be the part where Travis is going to nope out. Let me bring up the box office here, because I was gonna box office mojo. Hello, Mojo. Okay. Oh, son of a dang it. Bear with me. I was going back through my notes and I had missed something here. The song that closes the movie is a song called Punk Rocker by Iggy Pop, and is it's probably the deepest deep cut. I mean, it's kind of a bop. Like, I didn't know the song, but I was just like, I like it. But I saw this article in Rolling Stone 2 or 3 days ago. On the 28th, I saw an article from Rolling Stone. Iggy Pop plays Superman song Punk Rocker live for the first time. Iggy Pop's Punk Rocker, a once obscure collaboration with Swedish trio Teddy Bears, has gone viral since its appearance in Superman. So they, prior to this, they had asked Iggy Pop about how he felt about the movie using his song, and he says, quote, "Superman is the best friend you could have," said of using his song. That song is from 2006. That's not that long ago. He proved he meant it Saturday by playing the formerly obscure track live for the first time ever. The song, which has exploded on streaming services and gone viral on TikTok since the movie's release, concluded Iggy Pop's performance at Portland, Oregon's Project Paps Festival. According to a crowd member who posted a video, Pop dedicated the performance to Superman. The song's use in Superman ties in with a moment earlier in the movie, blah, blah, blah. About talking about the real punk rock. James Gunn has recently told Rolling Stone is quote unquote the point of the movie. In the same interview, Gunn said that he had first encountered punk rocker when it popped up via Spotify's algorithm and that the song stuck with him. God damn, that's weirdly authentic also. I don't know how I feel about the real world reality of James Gunn listening to Spotify and the algorithm giving him some weird ass obscure Iggy Pop song, and somehow that like takes root. I mean, like, think about the things that the algorithm has given you that stuck with you. They've said that, like, so I don't mess around with Spotify for music discovery. I mostly use it to listen to podcasts, but I do listen to music and playlists, and it's usually like this is, that kind of thing. And it's usually like a pretty well curated thing of greatest hits. But I've discovered music through YouTube, that kind of thing. It's like, so like YouTube is like the second most searched internet search engine behind Google. And for some, that's like the number one thing of music discovery. It's, folks have discovered my podcast from YouTube. People have discovered Two Mics Too Furious just from YouTube, just from the posting it there. Not even doing video, just putting a still image video of the audio. Anyway, back to this article. James Gunn says, and when I wrote that line, I think I thought back to that song and knew that would work really well, Gunn told Rolling Stone. And I just like how the ending juggled all those different pieces of the movie in a way where we showed that the real punk rock was him, his dad, all the way of the shot of the dad making the baby fly. He flies because of his parents. Damn, that's great. The end credits of Superman also feature another punk moment via a song by the Mighty Crabjoys, a fictional pop punk band said to be among Clark Kent's childhood favorites. Gunn, a former rock musician, wrote the Mighty Crabjoys theme with Foxy Shazam's Eric Nally. Quote, I literally wrote that song and sang it into my phone the first thing in the morning, says Gunn. It took 5 minutes and then Eric turned it into the fun song that it is. I didn't know that. That was worth it alone, just to share that with you. We learned that together in real time. That's pretty dope. So I think that would be a good way to kind of again close this particular door on Superman, and which is it, this one? Not thank you for watching. Mic check now. Be right back. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to see if this I am going to try to do some shenanigans. I'm going to play this for you. Hopefully I don't get struck down or whatever. And then I'm going to go take a break real quick, and then I will be right back, and then we'll talk to Fantastic Four. How about that? We'll see if that works. It's doing ads again. It's the thing when you click in the article, and then you go through it again, and you try to do it on YouTube, and it gives you more ads. I'm over-explaining this. My apologies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to risk life and limb. I'm going to do my screen share here, and I am going to put up this is going to work. This is going to work. Man, we are live streaming for real here. I am going to play this for you, and I will be right back. And you're listening to Mike Seibert Radio on the live stream. Travis, good night. Thanks for hanging out with us in the chat. And yeah, when you have other projects coming, drop me a line. Would love to have you back on the show and talk about the cool stuff that you've shared with me that I can't talk about. All right, I'll be right back.
See me driving down the street. I'm bored started with looking good. I got both hands on the wheel. The cops are coming. You can listen to music with no fear. You can hear it too if you're sincere. 'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. 'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. 'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. Well, I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. I see you stagger in the street, and you can't stay on your feet, and you're faking in your sleep. You wish that you were deep. You can hear me laughing to myself. You can say the words to someone else. 'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. 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 See me die on Bleecker Street. I'm bored with being God. See me steering in my car. I'm driving to my star. I'm listening to the music with no fear. Hey, buddy! You can hear it too if you're sincere. All right, buddy. 'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. Well, 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 I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. Fucking thank you. All right, let's get the band out here. Come on, I'll take a curtain call. Thank you for listening to us.
Okay, we're back. So that was Wheels of Fire from Cybertronic Spree off of their first original album, Ravage. That's just what came up. We were just talking about the algorithm and what the algorithm gives you. And so you got an extra taste of something I wasn't anticipating giving to you, but I'm glad that you got that kind of thing. So if you haven't checked out Cybertronic Spree, they are a band of robots united by the power of rock from Cyber Toronto. And basically they are, not to bury the lead, they are the Transformers. So they themselves are the Transformers. It's, Hot Rod and RC and a Quintesson and Unicron and Rumble and Shockwave and it is a cool, fun band that I have seen a couple times, and they were just recently at TFCon Toronto, and very cool bots, cool folks indeed. So let's move on. So I had mentioned before the break that I wanted to take a look at the box office a little bit to kind of get myself a little bit of bearings. So Fantastic Four is at the top of the pops. 117 mil over the weekend. Superman holding in with 24.9, and Jurassic World Rebirth hanging in that number 3 spot. Now, I'm not going to talk about that movie as at great a length as I did Superman and the Fantastic Four, but that's another one that is it's fine. I guess this summer at the movies is It's Fine, the movie. And we talked a while ago about the notion of at what point am I the problem? Am I Principal Skinner? And I'm just like, am I out of touch? No, it's the children that are wrong. So, but I think the triptych, the trine of Fantastic Four, Superman, and Jurassic World Rebirth all kind of represent the same thing. And the same thing being like, it's fine, it's like, I don't know. I feel like I should have something more insightful than that. But like, none of the 3 movies really blew my hair back, but conversely, neither did they piss me off. So it's like, I wonder if at this point these movies are being made by algorithm or something, or AI or ChatGPT or something. I don't know, but like, because like Jurassic World Rebirth is kind of a weird ass movie in that like it's almost a series of vignettes that are kind of strung together with the loosest of plot thread. I was talking about the plot being thin in F1 the movie and in Superman, and spoilers, Fantastic Four First Steps as well, but also Jurassic World Rebirth. It's like, I don't know if I just maybe I just don't have a handle on what I need and what I want anymore from a more, I guess, sophisticated plot, or embrace the perspective that I mentioned earlier. It's like a thinner plot is to its benefit. I don't know. The world will decide, but like I had a weird, I had a weird viewpoint or bias going in. I like Gareth Edwards, the director of Jurassic World Rebirth. The Creator was one of my favorite movies from a couple years ago. I really like that movie at a time where a lot of people soured on it. A lot of folks didn't like it, but I liked what it was doing on a meager budget. I think the pull quote I said at the time was like, this guy makes $80 million look like $180 million, that kind of thing. Just in terms of like, his more guerrilla style filming. He's very creative, filming stuff and as stand-ins for other things. And kind of like in a weird DIY kind of way, ironically enough, making it kind of punk rock. But he also directed the 2014 Godzilla movie, which some people like. I like it. I don't love it, but I like some of the stuff that he was doing with like vibe and scale and things like that. So my thought process of this guy coming out of the Creator. Oh, and he did most of Rogue One. And that's a story that may not ever be told. How much of that is Gareth Edwards' movie and how much of it is Tony Gilroy's movie when Disney kind of more or less, for lack of a better term, took the movie from him. So like, I mean, like there's like so much stuff like in the trailers that, just aren't in the movie. and apparently, his cut was more, violent and warlike and all of that. Like, didn't have the Vader hallway scene, all that kind of stuff. That was all added in later. But I was thinking, coming out of the creator, it's like, well, what can this guy do with another franchise? And we found out, and they gave him a Jurassic Park movie. And quietly, even though this is a movie I don't particularly like, it's very quietly my number 3. Like, for me, it's Park, World, this, and then a steep clip and everything else. Like, I don't even like any of those other movies. And all of the Jurassic World sequels, I don't like either. Like, I didn't like Fallen Kingdom. I mean, like, go back in the archives like a million years ago. Me and Killing Spree really got into it, like, because he loves the Jurassic World, and I didn't mean it that way, like in the title, but like the world of Jurassic Park. That's a franchise that is very special and important to him. And it was a rough day at the office where I was being a real shit about that Fallen Kingdom movie, because I do not like it. And then you follow up with Dominion, which is even worse. It's like, what if I told you that there was a dinosaur movie that has more to do with locusts than anything else? And it has, like, 2 different movies going on. It's like, you've got legacy characters doing this, you got new characters doing this, and they don't even meet up till the end of the movie, whatever. But I like the thing I like about this Jurassic World reboot is that, oh, that's a Freudian slip. The Jurassic World Rebirth is that it's kind of self-contained. It's kind of approachable. And here is one of the weird things that unites Superman, Jurassic World Rebirth, and Fantastic Four First Steps, is that you could walk into all 3 of these. These are all like legacy franchises, and all 3 of them are very approachable. They all give you everything you need to be able to enjoy it as a casual moviegoer, which I think is its strength. And I like that Jurassic World Rebirth is unburdened from almost any of the previous continuity. It kind of like picks up and ties off some ends from the Jurassic World cycle, but barely using that as a springboard. They're like, okay, well, what if dinosaurs came back to life and ran amok? And then this movie like opens with like a scroll that says, like, yeah, by the way, dinosaurs can't live in our world because of like climate change or whatever. It's an interesting ham-fisted choice of messaging, but I like that it just handles that, like, almost like in a way that Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams couldn't with their competing Star Wars sequels. Like, this just kind of like, yeah, this whole thing about like, dinosaurs in the real world, that's dumb. We need to tie that off. So they find a way to tie that off, very, very efficiently. And the movie doesn't even really bother with it. Instead, we're dealing with like mutants and malformed experiments. And where do they keep finding all of these islands to, because like I was talking to a friend of mine at work about like, oh man, so they're going back to the Lost World island. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, no, there was a second island. No, this is a different island entirely. Oh, you mean so the island from Jurassic Park 3? No, this is a different island entirely. Oh, you mean the island from Jurassic World? No, this is the other one, the other one. And it's like, no, this is a new island. This is one that they haven't talked about before. This is the one where they were doing like the funky experiments and stuff, where they're like making rancors and stuff. And I was kind of irritated by that notion. Like, I was having some a discourse with somebody on Facebook saying like, we've grown so jaded as a movie going audience to where dinosaurs aren't cool enough anymore. You have to make them mutated monsters. And I kind of don't like that conceit. I do like what they did in Jurassic World, where like that's kind of part of the plot. It's like, we created this creature, it's like, oh, the Indominus Rex, sponsored by Verizon. So a little bit of commercialism, consumerism, satire in there, just a little bit, enough to turn my head a little bit. But like, I was thinking that was going to be more of a problem. It's not as much of a problem because the mutant dinosaurs are barely in it. So, but like I said, it's very vignette-y. Like, every sequence is kind of unrelated. Like there's like this river rubber boat chase with the T-Rex that is from the original Jurassic Park novel that screenwriter David Koepp has said, like, oh man, I've been wanting to use this in a movie for almost 30 years. Like, he's been hanging on to that sequence. It's an action scene without a home, not unlike how they make the Mission Impossible movies. Like, they film all the stunt stuff and then figure out plot around it. That is not how you make a movie. And so anyway, this is kind of the result of that. It is entertaining. It's a good popcorn muncher. It's fun. It does have a little bit of a Jaws slasher vibe to it that I do kind of like. I do like that it's a little more ominous. I do like that it's a little more dark. It does kind of have a little bit of a throwback vibe to it. And it's got plenty of references, but not as many as you'd think, which I found refreshing. But much like with Superman, this movie is way overscored. Like, the music is out of control. Like, and that much like in Superman, there are times where like the Jurassic World theme or the Jurassic Park theme is aggressively misplaced. Like, it's like da 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 da, and I'm like, for this, okay, I mean, whatever. So yeah, it's like, I don't know, the music doesn't quite work. The special effects are really quite good. They're very much a standout, and I think it's because we're kind of going back to formula a little bit. Like, you think of movies like Jurassic Park or Terminator 2, and the thing you always say is like, good golly, that still holds up. It's because you forget that there aren't as many special effects shots as there are now. You look at something like Superman, you look at something like Fantastic Four, especially Fantastic Four. That is special effects made in a hurry by the outrage monkey bots. Or something, because it's like, it's like that Simpsons joke where like it's like the animators are all like handcuffed to the we are slaves. Oh no, that was from Clerks the animated series. What the hell am I talking about? But anyway, I really thought that was a Simpsons joke. Oh my gosh. It's getting late and I'm getting rummy, I guess, and I'm not even talking about the movie I'm supposed to be talking about yet. Good gravy. Anyway, Fantastic Four feels like it's thrown together. There are times where the special effects are straight up not good. Not the case in a Jurassic World Rebirth. I feel like because they're used sparingly, and oftentimes like the dinosaurs are shown at night or they're like in shadow. I love going back to that. I think that's a terrific move. And the performances are mostly okay. Mahershala Ali is hamming it up, not being Blade. I guess he needs to have something to do when he's too busy, not being Blade. How you can't make that movie, like Kevin Feige said, oh man, we just can't crack it. We can't just give him like a leather jacket and a sword and have him kill vampires. And I'm like, that's literally what it is. That's all you gotta do. That's all you have to do. And like, I was talking to somebody at work and they were saying like, oh, well, he could just fight zombies. I'm like, them too. What do you mean? Well, he fights vampires. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. I'm like, but he could fight zombies also. Zombies and werewolves and any manner of supernatural being. Like the corner of the Marvel universe that is still underexplored is the supernatural. Sure, we got Werewolf by Night and that was pretty cool, but like, yeah, give me more of that. And you could use Blade as your springboard to do that. Like he's like your monster hunter at a time where you haven't. Oh, wait a sec. They did introduce Elsa Bloodstone. What am I talking about? She's in Werewolf by Night. Whatever. But like, use Blade as your monster hunter character. Fine. Do that. Do something. Like the only thing good that's come of the Blade movie not being made is that there was a surplus of costumes that they were able to sell to Warner Brothers for Ryan Coogler's Sinners. So it's like a lot of costumes for extras and stuff, and those they were able to pick up on the cheap because at once upon a time Blade was going to be a period movie, and then that got thrown out. and now they had like all these like old timey costumes in surplus, and Ryan Coogler was able to pick them up to use in Blade. Anyway, Mahershala is fine in it. Scarlett Johansson needs to lay off the cigarettes. She's like, I'm on this Jurassic World. And I think like, I don't know. It's funny. Like I've really softened on her in live action. I don't know if she's just tuned out, checked out or whatever. But conversely, I really enjoyed her performance as Alita 1 in Transformers 1, where it's a vocal performance, and even stuff where she has like the too many cigarettes vocal fry thing. It's like one of like my very favorite bits of dialogue is she's like giving Orion Pax a pep talk, and like her voice cracks. It's like, and you went back for jazz, and it's like, but it's so authentic and cool, and I don't know if that was a blown take that they kept, but it's like it had so much cool depth and texture to it. Terrific at voice acting, not so great at live action acting. And I forget how many different places I've said it now that it's like almost 11 o'clock at night, my time on the live stream. I think I can say this without getting in trouble, overlooking the fact that, it's a podcast and you'll be able to play this later, but it's 3 hours into the episode, so you'll never be able to find it. Even Scarlett Johansson's profoundly snug and occasionally wet t-shirt can't save that performance or can't save that movie. Which it's interesting making these jokes in a post Sydney Sweeney Jeans world. But anyway, yeah. So there were two huge reasons why I wanted to watch that movie. Okay, I'm moving on before I get canceled. But anyway, like the movie is, it's fun, it's thrilling. It does all the things that a latter day Jurassic sequel should do. So anyway, it's so do I recommend it? Sure. If you need a movie to go see, sure. If you haven't seen Fantastic Four or Superman or F1, sure, go see Jurassic Park. I don't even know what my ranking order is. 'Cause like, I mean, I think now that I think it would be Superman, F1, Fantastic Four, Jurassic World. I guess would be my ranking of the four big summer movies so far. I like that F1 the movie. It's fun. And I like, especially now that I've talked about it for 2 hours, I do like Superman more than I like the Fantastic Four first steps. So, but that being said, let's get into it. Todd Sellers here in the chat. Would you rent it, see it in theaters, or buy the DVD? Well, which one are we talking about? Because I've seen them all in theaters. So, I guess probably just Jurassic World. I think it's worth a theater go. I think it's worth a theater go. I think if you watch it at home, you'll get the same thing out of it, because it's more spectacle than plot. And that's the thing. And like, so those questions for me are harder to wrestle with, because I'm an advocate for seeing things in the theater regardless. Like I'm going to tell you to go see The Naked Gun in theaters. And like, it's a comedy. It's a big box comedy. There's no special effects extravaganza. And I don't think that something has to be a special effects extravaganza to warrant theatrical exhibition. Now, I've also been told recently that my perspective is skewed, because I do have the privilege of occasionally being invited to see advanced screenings for media. And with that means I don't always have to pay to go see the movies. But since I have such a tenuous, loose relationship with money, I don't know if I think it's more about time than money and opportunity. But also, it's just me and my wife. We're not like a family of four. Like, I've talked to my buddy Anthony Brucali, TFU.info. It's like he'll set me straight sometimes. He's like, you talk about going to the movies all the time, but like for like a family of three, do you know how much that costs by the time you get tickets and popcorn and snacks and all that stuff? It's like, you're almost at 3 digits, that kind of thing. So it's like that level of privilege does kind of skew my perspective from time to time. I apologize if that is too esoteric of an answer, but the thing to know about me is that yeah, I will advocate for theatrical screening more than anything. Like for example, coming up in September, the SIF Cinema downtown, the former Cinerama, they've reopened, and they will be showing for like 3 weeks straight a series of Star Wars marathons. Like they're doing like a Star Wars marathon in chronological order and then in release order. And then going back and forth on that. Point being is like I am going to go see Star Wars episode 4 A New Hope on my birthday. A movie that I've seen 1.5 million times, a movie I can watch right now on Disney Plus, a movie that I can watch on any number of physical medias that I own, and it is the most current Disney version. So it's got all kinds of crap I don't like. You know, it's got Jabba, it's got Greedo shoots first, that kind of thing. So it is a bastardized version of that movie, but I kind of don't care because it's still fundamentally the movie, and to see it at the Cinerama and on my birthday, that's something that's pretty special. So, but that's like a $25 ticket or something like that. So, I mean, it's not even cheap. So, yes, as Todd points out in the chat, the Lucas cut. Yeah, very much so. But even so, I don't care because I like watching movies in the theater. I like watching movies at the movies. So again, apologies that's not as great of an answer. Themed popcorn bucket from Todd also. Absolutely. So like in fact, the last popcorn bucket I bought was the Transformers Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime trailer truck that I've ended up using a couple times to like put candy and buttons in there. So that's fun. I don't get the collector market for these large popcorn vessels. Like like if you've seen the one for Fantastic Four, like the giant Galactus head, like that thing's like $50. And like to put, I don't know, popcorn in it. Like popcorn has never touched my Optimus Prime because I know what movie theater butter does to things. Like I have a number of t-shirts that I can only wear at the movies because I'm a sloppy bitch and I just get like popcorn all over my shirt, ruining my shirts. That kind of thing. Anyway, I'm drifting. Fantastic Four first steps. So it's the thing. I don't remember if how did I put this? I've said that Superman and Fantastic Four first steps are of a kind. And I do believe so because they are both kind of hope core type of movies where they, kind of reject cynicism and embrace optimism, brightly colored, wacky adjacent, light on its feet, all of that. But there's another underlying issue that both of these movies kind of share. And I would like to call it the Spider-Man problem. And what I mean by the Spider-Man problem is the MCU's version of Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, the baby Spider-Man himself. Ooh, I'm Mr. Stark. Oh no, I'm the baby Spider-Man. Ooh, gabagoo. That kind of goo goo gaga. I'm the baby Spider-Man. That iteration of the character has so much of an anti-origin. Like, Spider-Man Homecoming is such an anti-origin movie that MCU Peter Parker doesn't even have Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben doesn't exist in the MCU. Not even a fleeting reference to like, oh man, that's something my uncle used to say. Motherfucker doesn't learn that powerful lesson about power and responsibility until Spider-Man No Way Home, after the kid has gone to space and died. After he is met by 2 other Spider-Men. And now he learns about with great power comes great responsibility. Save it. One of these days, I have promised myself and you that I will do some kind of like intellectual deep dive essay type of thing about why that bothers me so much. because like I've shared that with others and I kind of get laughed out of the room. It's like, or well, do you need to see him get bit by the spider again? No. But I do need him to say the thing that with great power comes responsibility, because if he doesn't have that fundamental lesson, he's not Spider-Man. Well, what do you mean he's not Spider? I'm like, well, he's just some other jackass superhero. He's like, again, I don't need to see Peter Parker get bit by the spider. I don't need to see Thomas and Martha Wayne get gunned down in the alley. That's not what I'm saying. But what I feel is going on in these postmodern superhero movies, contemporary current ones, is that they are so concerned with hitting the ground running and not presenting a traditional origin story that they kind of forget to do the fundamentals, the formatics, the formalities, the laying the groundwork of who this character is and why this character is. Superman has that problem. And I think it navigates those waters well enough. I do like that it jumps in, because I don't need to see Marlon Brando put the baby in the spaceship and off we go from a dying Krypton. It's like, you can give me that explanation as we go. But you also kind of need to tell me who Superman is and why he is. And the movie kind of does that, but you could argue that it kind of doesn't. Fantastic Four: First Steps has the same problem. You join the movie already in progress. It throws you right in. And there is a bit of a flashback, which I thought was pretty cool and is concise, I suppose. Basically, like, and it doesn't stray from the story. These 4 brave scientists go in a rocket ship and they get hit by cosmic rays and come back to Earth with strange and alarming superpowers. That's all intact. But that's presented as a flashback. Basically, the Fantastic Four in First Steps, as we meet them, they've been active for 4 years. So the implication is that they have had 4 years worth of comic book movie adventures before we even meet them. And yes, you get the origin story of like, oh man, we went into space and we got hit by the cosmic rays, that kind of thing. But it, more so than Superman, Fantastic Four: First Steps forgets to tell you who the characters are. Like, what's Reed Richards' deal? Like, okay, he's smart, but like, who is he as a character? Like, is he arrogant? Is he protective? No, he's Pedro Pascal. And I have very mixed feelings about the cast, because like, I don't dislike Pedro Pascal. I like him in quite a lot of things. I like him as the voice of the Mandalorian. And, I think he is a great actor, but I think we've also kind of reached peak Pedro, and we're almost in the post Pedro bubble. The Pedro bubble is about to pop, I think. And it's because of like overexposure. This guy is everywhere. And I don't think having him in this role brings anything to the Reed Richards Fantastic Four character, other than for him to be an A-list actor that you can put on the poster and use that to sell tickets. Now, is that cynical or is that brilliant on Marvel's part? I think it is a good calculated move, given the baggage that Fantastic Four as a movie property comes with. It's been 10 years since we've had a Fantastic Four movie. And if any of y'all remember that the Josh Trank catastrophe that was Fant Four Stick, styled in the same ways as Expendables, that kind of thing, where we're like putting the number, substituting for letters. It's a very stupid trope that they keep doing, that kind of thing. But I think Pedro Pascal he's a fine enough actor for the part, but more than that, he is a bankable movie star. And shrug, that's fine if that's the choice you want to make. Now, I'm not here to fix the casting in this movie. It's like, who else would you cast instead? Fuck, I don't know. but yeah, I can't litigate that now. Let me know who you think should have been Mr. Fantastic, and as well as the other casting, because like casting is kind of odd in this movie. So anyway, Pedro Pascal, he's Mr. Fantastic. I like Vanessa Kirby as an actor as well. I think she's terrific in those Mission Impossible movies. I even like her as Jason Statham's same age sister. Square that circle in that Hobbs and Shaw. I do like her. And I do like her in this movie because like this movie understands who Sue Storm is. And what you can do with that character, and making her a mother also gives her that much more to do and really kind of cements the theme of family, because that's the thing that sometimes these movies forget about, is that the strength of the Fantastic Four is family. Much like the Fast and the Furious, the strength is family. And these guys, in a way that they haven't been for a long time, are a believable family unit. The problem with Fantastic Four or Fant4stic 2015 is that they aren't a family. They're just four people that don't like each other, that kind of thing, because that's what we were doing in 2015. It was very, very edgy. So, but my problem with Vanessa Kirby is that she has graduated from the Benedict Cumberbatch school of hammering out the flattest, blandest American accent. So you get one of the most British people of our young actors performing today, because Vanessa Kirby is very British, and she is just hammering out this accent like she's on like Forged in Fire, like she is forging a broadsword, just like hammering this thing flat. And there are times that it hinders the performance. Like she is working so hard to flatten out her accent that it interferes with the acting. And it underscores to me that in 20 years we still haven't been able to crack the right actress at the right time for Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, which in a way doesn't make sense to me. Cause like in Fant4stic, you got Kate Mara in there, wearing this freaking I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world fake wig. Like she's brunette at the beginning of the movie. It's like brunette Sue Storm. Oh, okay, cool, whatever. But nothing will come close to the crimes of taking poor Jessica Alba, dyeing her hair bleach blonde. Now, granted, it was blonde at the time because she was doing Sin City and all that other stuff, but I just want to be mad about it. So you take like, a gorgeous young woman like Jessica Alba, who isn't blonde haired and blue eyed, and make her that. Like I was watching clips of like that Rise of the Silver Surfer, and like the thick contacts that they put her in to make her eyes blue, and like the blonde wigs and the blonde dye job. It's just like, what? How? So between all of that, and now you have British Sue Storm also, it's like, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be that guy about it, but it's like, are you telling me that in all of Hollywood, in all of our talented young actors, there's nobody that can convincingly be American, blonde hair, blue eyes without significant thing? I mean, because again, hair color can be dyed, but again, I'm more mad about the contacts that they made Jessica Alba wear than her hair, because again, it was blonde at the time. I need to get over that. But anyway, it's just like, I don't know. It's just like it hit me really, really odd. Because like there are scenes, as I said, in the performance that's hampered by that. The gentleman that plays the Thing is terrific. It's a great mocap performance. There are times the CG on the Thing looks terrible, and it pisses me off because I love the character design. I love that he looks like he stepped out of a Jack Kirby comic book. That like he's just wearing regular clothes. He's wearing like a full body costume, that he's not just running around in trunks. I like that. That's cool because that's how a normal guy would dress. He just happens to be a rock man. Just because he's a rock man doesn't mean he needs to run around in Hulk speedos. So I like that. I think that's neat. I like that they got that he's Jewish, because that is a component of Ben Grimm's character, and they do that in the movie, and I like that. Like, and at a point where Ben Grimm is kind of connected to his faith, but also kind of not, and it's kind of like a little bit of a plot point. I like that. And I like the authenticity of it. It's great, but like there are times where again, it's like I don't know what's wrong with it, but it looks fake. Just as fake as Michael Chiklis in an orange rock suit, unfortunately. So it's like but much like with the Transformers, you have to remember that anytime the thing is on screen, he is a visual effect. And now with like doing like the mocap and the computer replacement and stuff, yeah, maybe the technology just isn't quite there. Or maybe it needed more time in the oven, but there are times that it looks awful. And I'll talk about these two characters together in tandem. Johnny Storm looks great. Looks exactly what you want the Human Torch to be. No notes. Aesthetically. And I like, even so, like, I don't necessarily care for the wool jumpsuit costumes. Those look incredibly hot. Like, not in you look hot in that, like it looks very warm as I am in this, in this overcooked studio, that kind of thing. It looks uncomfortable, like itchy wool type of thing. But the thing that I like is like when Johnny Storm goes into Human Torch mode, because the it's like cable knit sweaters, it has the lines like the Human Torch looks in the comics. So I thought that was pretty cool. But what I was saying before about the characters, before I got hung up on my whole damn Pedro Pascal thing, is that the movie is so much of an anti-origin story. It doesn't tell you who these characters are. I would say of the four, Sue is actually the most authentic to the comics and the most fleshed out. Whereas both Ben and Johnny are kind of one note, but it's the wrong one note, because like the thing about Ben Grimm, the Thing, is that he's sad and he's tortured that he's a rock monster. Now granted, there are times where he kind of makes peace with it, especially like in like the This Man, This Monster comic series, where it's like it's depressing. It's like Ben Grimm contemplates exiling himself to another dimension and gives up his superpowers, gets tricked into swapping with like a mad scientist guy and all that other stuff. And it is a very poignant issue of comic books. But this Ben Grimm is completely at peace with being the Thing. And I would have liked to have seen just a little more angst. Not in oh man, I'm sad. Or maybe like something that said like, I was sad, but now I'm not. I don't think this Ben Grimm has ever been sad about being the Thing. And I think that I kind of brushed up against that. And I thought the characterization was kind of off. But I also have to realize that story probably happened in the 4 years that we didn't see before we see them active as the Fantastic Four. And then Johnny Storm, it's like, so he has a really cool character arc in the movie where it's like he gets to do some smart detective stuff. He deciphers an alien language and really contributes to the team. It's a subversion of expectations of what you want from the Johnny Storm character, especially coming off of Chris Evans's performance in the two Fantastic Four movies from the 2000s, where basically he's a himbo and a kind of a 2000s douche bro, a womanizer, that kind of thing. It's kind of a problematic figure, but like that's also kind of the Johnny Storm character. He's kind of a skirt chaser. And there's an opportunity in Fantastic Four where they kind of lean into that. They could lean into that, but they didn't do that character work for him because they're too busy subverting the character trope. So when Johnny encounters Shia LaBeouf, the Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner, who is a female Silver Surfer, there really isn't the hubba hubba. Like there's jokes about like, oh man, well, Johnny's got like a, girlfriend and things like that. But the movie doesn't really set the groundwork that Johnny's a skirt chaser. So it's like, so those don't quite land. Like, I know that from reading comics, but the movie doesn't tell me that kind of thing. So it's like, it's hard to subvert his traditional character type if you don't tell me what the traditional character type is. These are weird, dumb hangups that I have. But those were a handful of things that just kind of brushed up against me, kind of character wise. But I like Superman more, but I do like this. But it is like Superman in that it's a little shallow. Like, one of the things that is cool about it, I guess I'll kind of do this Rose and the Thorn styly. Like, I mean, so let me go back to the cast. The dynamic is terrific. Like, all four actors play off of each other brilliantly. And I would say that there is genuine chemistry between the two leads, between Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby. I've been told to avoid the press tour stuff because I guess it gets vaguely uncomfortable. I don't know exactly what that means, but I've avoided that. But anyway, but it's the good stuff. It's the most believable Fantastic Four family put on screen. And especially when, spoiler alert, Franklin is born, and that becomes the thrust of the third act of the movie, then it really gets into the family dynamic, which is terrific. But the thing with making a Fantastic Four movie in 2025 after you've had 3 diminishing returns attempts at it is that in the interim, they've made other Fantastic Four movies. Like, how do you make a Fantastic Four movie that works as a Fantastic Four movie when The Incredibles exists? They already made the perfect Fantastic Four movie, and it's called The Incredibles. So what do you do? So this, to me, is kind of a watered down, weak sauce version of The Incredibles. Unfortunately, sorry. And I feel bad for saying that because I remember, I don't remember when I said this. I know I said it in 2015 or leading up to 2015, leading up to the Josh Trank Fan Four Stick. I was like, no, here's what you do. You said it in the 60s. And I don't know if I said that because of The Incredibles or if I said that around The Incredibles, but that's a take that I have had for years. That, like, because much like Superman, there is an inherent corniness to the Fantastic Four in kind of like a aw gee whiz, aw shucks kind of thing. And the best way to do that is not make it all 2000 Spike TV and not make it 2015 Grimdark, where it's like, oh no, we're doing body horror and these are horrible mutations. These aren't cool superpowers. You know, you don't do that. What you do is you go back to the comic books and you set it in the 60s because this doesn't make sense in 2025. Which leads me to like one of my weird other hangups with the movie. I don't know if this movie takes place in the 60s or on a Earth where the 60s never ended. The movie doesn't really answer that for me, and it gnaws at me. But I will say as a positive, it nails the like retro futuristic aesthetic. You know, kind of like the Jetsons style, you know, kind of like futuristic past. And it's like, you know, all like mid-century modern and it's visually cool. And I guess I should have said a while ago, you like that WandaVision? You probably like Fantastic Four because it takes the production aesthetic of WandaVision where they like, you know, painstakingly emulated these classic sitcoms. That's what this does. And when Matt Shackman, the director, was announced, I was like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to put it in the 60s. And it's like, and once I started seeing posters and the fonts, I'm like, yes, give it to me. And like a spoiled brat, now that I have it, I don't know that I want it. Because the retro futuristic aesthetic is cool. It's great. But I don't know, I don't want to say the movie's a mess, but I will say that just like with Superman, Fantastic Four First Steps is exactly the movie that the trailer tells you. There's nothing else there. Whereas with Superman, I've said because the trailers don't have the whole punk rock aspect of it. This is literally what you see is what you get. There's no secrets. There's no, you've seen half of the movie if you've seen the various trailers that are available. It's shallow, not a lot of depth, not a lot of suspense, not a lot of stakes. And okay, so I'm gonna drift more into spoilers here. So hopefully you've either seen the movie or you've seen the latest run of Marvel movies or whatever, because I'm gonna proceed to continue to spoil the shit out of this. I think the Marvel MCU trend of unresolved plot threads from post-credit scenes is epidemic. Don't even get me started on Eternals, and because we're never going to see Jon Snow pick up that sword. It doesn't even matter. It's a joke at this point. I'm sure Harry Styles has moved on to other things. We're not going to see that dude as Star Fox. Get out of here. But at the end of Thunderbolts, the post-credit scene, it's like 14 months later. Everybody's got new, worse outfits. God, that Winter Soldier outfit sucks. But anyway, it presumably takes place during Avengers Doomsday, and the new Avengers are hanging out, and they see a spaceship coming through a dimensional rift. Wouldn't you know it? It's the Fantastic Four spaceship. I know this because it says Fantastic Four on it, and they're playing the music, a bit that they spoiled in the credits before the post-credit scene, because it says Fantastic Four First Steps theme by Michael Giacchino, and I'm just like, oh, cool. I guess that's what the post-credit scene is. It's like, how does that happen? That's so dumb. Anyway, it leads to speculation about how does Fantastic Four First Steps tie in with the Marvel MCU? How do these universes collide? So I speculated that because knowing that Silver Surfer and Galactus are in play, and that Galactus is the threat to the Earth in Fantastic Four First Steps, my theory is that they fail. The Fantastic Four fail to save the Earth, and then they escape and get caught in a dimensional rift, and that's how they end up in the Marvel Universe. That's how they get unstuck from the 60s, like time travel or whatever. But again, I can't tell if this is 2025 or if it's 1965. The movie doesn't tell me. But I thought that that's what was going to happen. So in my mind, the whole time, I'm trying to figure out how this ties together. Spoilers for the entire movie. One, that's not what happens. Galactus is defeated and the Earth is saved. There is I repeat, no connection to that scene in Thunderbolts. And there is no indication that they are going to leave this Earth for another one. So this movie takes place on a alternate Earth, Earth 828, which in itself is a very cool Easter egg. It's based on Jack Kirby's birthday, and if I don't say it now, I'll probably forget about it because I'm starting to get pretty rummy. But I love that this movie is a love letter to Jack Kirby. It's kind of a love letter to Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, but this is very much a love letter to Jack Kirby, which I think is just terrific. There's a quote at the end of the movie. I think it's at the end of the credits. That I will read when I find it. I have a Jack Kirby-esque tangent that I want to share with you when we get to the end, but I'll save that for the end. But for now, back to the movie. Again, it's very straightforward. simplistic, paint by numbers. And since you know that these characters show up in the Avengers Doomsday, nobody's in danger. Much like in that Jurassic World, you're not going to kill the baby. So, it's safe. Not a lot of tension. There's kind of some pacing issues. It is kind of formulaic, kind of like cog in the machine type of thing. It doesn't really do anything particularly different. Sure, it's not an origin story, but like it's cut from the same cloth as Spider-Man Homecoming, to where it's like, okay, well, we've decided to not do the origin because the origin of the Fantastic Four. So therefore, we're going to jump in time 4 years. They're active and shrug whatever. That's a thing that's been done already. The villains, severely undercooked. I want to say Unicron in Transformers the movie has more character development than Galactus. The Silver Surfer is a little more developed, and you kind of understand why she is what she is, which I think is cool. But still undercooked. I mean, like overall, the script and the plot kind of weak, lacking in depth, predictable formula, minimal tension, and it's kind of at the end, it's just kind of rushed, and it's like kind of simplistic in how it resolves. However, that being said, again, I like the movie. I just don't love it. It is the best Fantastic Four movie ever. Like this is the closest. This is what it's going to be. This is the best that this could be. Because again, kind of similar to Superman, it's like a comic book. It does kind of have that weird retro cool stylist, kind of retro futurist flair to it. And again, the dynamic between the family is great. Positive representation, like there's no deadbeat dads or anything like that. Everybody is nice, everybody is friendly, and it's got themes of strength through unity, and our differences are our strengths, that kind of thing. Again, the special effects felt rushed and cheap, but it's one of those things. And I was talking to Lucky about this, and I think what it comes down to is that these movies are special effects wall to wall, whereas the special effects movies that we had when we grew up, like the Abyss, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, you forget how sparing the visual effects are. Even something like Transformers 2007, you'll forget how much the robots are not in the movie. And we've taken for granted the innovation and availability of special effects technology to where it's not special anymore. It's commonplace. And what happens when it's commonplace is it becomes boring. And at a time where I'm fighting against cynicism, because, go back to my whole tangent about punk rock and how like subverting expectations is in itself punk rock. I'm kind of sad a little bit that I've grown old enough that I am bored by extravagant superhero movies. How sad. I do like that it's wacky, it's optimistic, it's got a comic book aesthetic, it's bouncy, it's refreshing. And I'd like that it does have a fun and lighthearted tone. The score is kind of a mixed bag. Again, I feel like it's overdriven at times. I do also like that it is, for all of my talk about anti-origins and stuff, it is standalone, it is accessible, it's approachable, kind of a no homework required approach. So who is this movie for? It's for newcomers, it's for folks that are fatigued by all of like the interconnected convoluted stuff. Like this, it's cool that it's free of that stuff. I am a little sore that again, it doesn't, oh God, I'm flashing back to that time that I was reviewing Black Panther, and the folks I was talking to as guests on my show were mad at Black Panther because Thanos wasn't in it and there's no Infinity Stones. Is that where I'm going with my criticisms of Fantastic Four? I don't think it is, but I am critical that there's no connection there. And the post-credit scene with a titular character for an upcoming movie shows up looks cheap and stitched on. And it's like, either pay that guy to be there or don't. A shadowy figure in a thick hooded cloak holding a mask does nothing for me. Shut up. Though I will tell you though that the post credit scene, the second one, is terrific because it's fun and it's just a riff on, you know, the cartoon aesthetic that they had mentioned earlier. But again, the family dynamic is the engine that makes it go. Ton of references in this. In fact, I have a whole list, and I'm not even gonna read them all because, like, you know, there's like so many like comic book references. You know, you got Herbie in there with, like, you know, his tape deck face. And being a fan of the podcast Blank Check, I was kind of part of that write-in campaign, or not real campaign, but Griffin Newman was campaigning hard to be the voice of Herbie. And I like what they did with Herbie. But that also could have been Griffin Newman making those noises, and it made a lot of people happy. But that's it's fine. But yeah, like, I mean, there was a lot of comic book references that made me tickle, like name drops and stuff. But I like that it establishes in the world that time has passed. Like they've been living in this world for a period of time. So that's kind of neat. But a couple things I wanted to call out. The cast of the 1994 Roger Corman movie make cameos. They're in a crowd scene together, where they're cheering and saying "Thank you, Fantastic Four," which I thought was I thought that was pretty cool and very nice. A nice way to include folks. I've always said, like, the way to make good with folks that have like done stuff in the past, the way to pay creators, writers, artists, put them in the damn movies. I'm not going to bother telling you the story about how Ed Brubaker has made more money off of his Blink and You Miss It cameo in Captain America the Winter Soldier than he made for creating the Winter Soldier for Marvel Comics. I'm going to skip that, but that's the point. Like I've said, it's just like, put these people in cameos. It's fine. And then instead of that solves your royalties problem. Instead of, like, you know, pay people, you put them in the movies. You put Jim Starlin in an Avengers movie and suddenly he's off your back about royalties. Easy. Problem solved. But there's a couple homages to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as well. On Yancey Street, name drop for Yancey Street, Ben Grimm's childish home store shop signs include Stanley's Service Center, referencing Stanley's real name, Stanley Lieber, and King Dry Cleaners, a nod to Jack Kirby, obviously nicknamed the King. A Times Square scene shows two men at a drafting table, implied to be Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, with character drawings on the wall. I almost stood up and popped for this because, like, yeah, it's a blink and you miss it thing, but like there's you've got like two artists. Well, I mean, you got one guy that's an artist, but you've got two guys in a drafting board. And yeah, I would have to see the scene again. So I don't know if they're doing like hair pieces or prosthetics or whatever, but they look like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And I just, like, they did that for me. And I thought that was super cool and very sweet and very nice. A Timely Comics sign appears in New York, referencing Marvel's original name before it became Marvel Comics. I also mentioned that the story takes place on Earth 828, and that is a tribute to Jack Kirby. And this kind of gets to that quote that I still haven't found. I'll find it here in a sec. The film setting Earth 828 is an Easter egg honoring Fantastic Four co-creator Jack Kirby, born August 28th, 1917. And that's the 828. So basically, like, they show the quote and it says, like, Jack Kirby, you know, August 28th, 1917, and then like the 8 and the 28 combined, and that's where you get 828. It's fine. It's cute. This alternate universe show allows the story to exist outside the main MCU Earth 616 continuity, which still burns my ass because 616 should be Marvel Comics, not the MCU. The MCU should have its own dumb number. Like call it like 1616 or something, or 2008, Earth 2008 to commemorate Iron Man or something. I don't know. But if it's a multiverse, a true multiverse, the Marvel Comics universe should be its own universe within the multiverse. I sound like an insane person saying that out loud. But let me give me just a sec here. Let me find this. Cuz like this was a post that I didn't quite know what to do with. Hang on. Because it has to do with like a story of Jack Kirby. And again, I don't know if this is true or not. So I saw this in a number of different places, but I'm going to do a screen share here, so maybe you can read along with me. And I found this from BJ Shea's Geek Nation page. BJ still runs the Facebook page for the dearly departed BJ Shea's Geek Nation podcast, now defunct. But BJ asks, is this new FF movie post true or even partly true? It's a long post and essentially says the movie is an homage to Jack Kirby, Fantastic Four's original artist. As the true and best writer-creator of the original characters, he and Stan were like Lennon and McCarthy. A link to post in comments. The end of the post is very interesting. But this does have the quote that I was talking about here. So the movie ends and says, quote, "If you look at my characters, you will find me. No matter what character you create or assume, a little of yourself must remain there." And that's it's a statement that the this iteration of the Fantastic Four is a homage to Jack Kirby more so than Stan Lee. And as in this post that I will read you as we close out the show, is almost kind of like not a thumb to Stan Lee, but close. So yeah, let me turn screen sharing off. I think I found the original post. Yeah, so this is actually, yeah, let me share it again. This post is incredibly lengthy. But yeah, let me take a crack at reading this because I want to get to the point of what BJ was getting at, because I don't know if I believe all of this either, and I can't corroborate it. Okay, this posted to the Fantastic Four fan site on Facebook. The new Fantastic Four movie leans into the Fantastic Four that Jack Kirby wrote and jettisoned so much of the hokey, arrogant, sexist material that Stan Lee grafted on. Reed Richards, he gets his intelligence, remoteness, and vulnerability from Kirby. What the movie makers excised is the arrogance, dickery, and sexism that Stan Lee added. Abundantly clear in the Strange Tales issues where Kirby had no role. Sue Storm, her strength, courage, and leadership are at the fore. The movie dropped the incompetence, cowardice, and dependency on Reed that Lee added, often working against Kirby's art, which showed her to be decisive, proactive, and courageous. Lee even stooped to adding dialogue to an unconscious Reed to rob Sue of figuring out a complex solution herself. And there's links here with, I'm assuming, are examples that the poster is referring to. Johnny Storm, his hot-headedness is downplayed to show his more introspective, thoughtful, and caring side. This is not playing against type. Whoops. Go back to an hour ago. This is Kirby's characterization of Johnny Storm post-Galactus saga. Kirby showed that Johnny was capable of character growth from his harrowing experiences obtaining the Nullifier, an experience that harmed him, matured him, and left him changed forever. I'm going to stop there for a sec. Big spoiler. They defeat Galactus by just kind of like shoving him into a portal. No ultimate nullifier in Fantastic Four first steps. None of the pathos in the Galactus saga. I was hoping for some of that. Instead, they just kind of shove him over. Shrug, it's fine. We continue. Kirby showed that, no, I saw that already. When Kirby stopped writing the FF, Stan Lee reverted Johnny to the only characterization he understood. A kid so rash and manic that forgot to flame on after jumping out of a window, just so Lee could have a pointlessly dramatic last-minute street-melting last-minute save. Ben Grimm. The focus on his essential dignity and heart, which is pure Kirby. Lee's portrayal as a dim-witted, clumsy buffoon is gone. Okay. Silver Surfer. Lee's whining, mewling, gesticulating, overacting Silver Surfer crybaby is gone. Whew. Okay. I'm not the biggest Silver Surfer fan, but that sentence is offensive. Kirby's badass amoral Silver Surfer is back. Ultimately, the movie retains Lee's Zenlaw retcon, which ruined the character and degraded the Surfer from a state of white-hot popularity to a canceled comic in only 18 issues despite beautiful art. Lee failed to grasp an obvious fact. If the Surfer is fully aware of the evil of genocide but chooses to do it anyway, the Surfer is irredeemably evil. That means he cannot become a pompous moralizer, let alone Stan Lee version of a Christ figure. This is starting to piss me off. This was immediately obvious to many readers, but not to Lee or anyone at Marvel who went along with it like Roy Thomas, a genocidal monster who is also so tenderhearted that he endlessly moralizes about pollution is a failed characterization. Galactus, while the characterization of Galactus is mostly curvy, the movie did toss some of Lee's out-of-character depiction of Galactus as a rampaging kaiju. This is nowhere nearly as bad as Lee's version in which Galactus is a manipulative, petty jerk, but it does lead to an ending that strains what is plausible. No spoilers. Oops, I already did that. They shove him into a thing. No ultimate nullifier. Fortunately, the movie makers decided to make major deviations from Stan Lee FF playbook and return to the Kirby characterizations. From numbering the movie reality as Earth 828 for Kirby's birthday to the Thing's girlfriend named Roz to the Kirby quote at the end, the creators seem to be saying that they know these are Kirby's characters. Maybe the evidence of who really did what is finally starting to resonate. So, that's, to me, that's a lot of take it as you will. There's a lot there that I, quite frankly, don't know how to grapple with. Like, I'm not so precious about Stan Lee that as to deny that he, took credit for other people's work, and that obviously Stan Lee overshadowed Jack Kirby in terms of what people think of creating the Marvel universe. I don't know. As I said, I haven't corroborated a lot of that. There's some of that I believe. There's some of that I think is too provocative for my taste. So let me. So as I mentioned, this was shared from BJ Shea's Geek Nation. I would like to share some of the comments in here because I thought some of these were particularly resonant for me. Let's see. So Ty writes, I've been meaning to ask my comic friends about this stuff. I was an odd comic book guy, Gru, Robotech, etc., but I was never Marvel. I wanted to know if F4 stayed true to the books or not, and what the deviations were. Joliet writes, well, if at any point Ben Grimm thing shows he is Jewish, then I'm 100% down with it because that's a big deal and a very Kirby trait. Very true. Jeff writes, this movie was pretty damn close to the source material. They did throw in some Jack Kirby Easter eggs as well as some Stan Lee Easter eggs. However, you can tell that the team behind this film stuck really close to the early adventures of the FF and not tried to do a modern day take on it like everything else. Magnificent point. But this was the one I wanted to read. This from a writer, also a KGRG kid. So anyway, so he writes to BJ here. In response to BJ's question about whether this is legit, and I trust Ryder as a comic guy even more so than I trust my knowledge. Ryder writes, it's pretty close. Granted, Stanley influences were still there. They stuck to the thing being Jewish and being a reflection of Kirby as a character. Kirby was known for his work on multiple comics before the superhero boom, which is what influenced the Fantastic Four. He mainly wrote monster books and love story comics, so all those fit in when he created the characters. The world around the Fantastic Four was also heavily built on his futuristic comics as well, with the type of the Jetsons and other futuristic premises made in the 1960s, like the monorail and bubble dome vehicles. Stanley was still responsible for the origin of Silver Surfer and his wife, which also made it into the film. It's not so much erasing the changes Stan made, but enhancing the original choices of Kirby. And I'm glad I read that, because that read on it makes me feel better. Because while Stanley was not a saint, I also don't necessarily appreciate a post like that tearing him and his legacy down. That was like, I don't believe I'm not a Jack Kirby truther. I don't believe that Jack Kirby created all of this stuff and Stanley just came and like farted all over and ruined it. I've seen Jack Kirby's solo work. I can't stand that fourth world stuff. Like it's too weird. And Jack Kirby's writing sensibilities aren't the strongest. Now, some of those things that Stanley wrote into those books, obviously incredibly retrograde and, of their time, that wasn't super great. But man, I didn't realize I was so mad until I read that out loud to you. But yeah, I mean, that might explain some of what my hangups were. Because here's the thing. I forgot to mention this 2 hours ago, but I like the Fantastic Four as characters, but they're not my favorite, much like Superman. I like them as characters, and I like them when they interact with other characters. I like when they show up for like big crossovers, like, Secret Wars or whatever, Civil Wars or whatever. Yeah, there's some cool stuff there. And much like Black Panther and some other Marvel heroes that I say I like, I've picked up and put down their comics a number of times. I can't stand the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four stuff. I don't like Hickman in general. Take away my comic fan card, but like his writing is just too dense for me. Too dense, too thick, too thinky. Like I can stand Grant Morrison stuff, but Hickman's is just I don't know. It's dry. It feels like homework. And I think that they're going to lean more into the Hickman stuff as we go further down the MCU with like incursions and things like that. But like, I mean, I had a phase. Was this in the early 2000s or maybe the late 90s when Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo, R.I.P., the late great Mike Wieringo, did a run on Fantastic Four. I remember that being fun as hell. And like, I don't know. Again, as I said, it's not a book that I've really stuck with for any particular time, but I've always picked it up and put it down, and I've always had like a degree of affection for the characters. I picked up like that Marvel Knights 4 miniseries in like the late 90s, also the one that kind of like recontextualizes Sue Richards as a hot mom, that kind of thing. I forget who was the artist on that. Was that not Scotty Young, not Steve Scrose, Steve McNiven. You think of like comic panels that always stick with you, but like Steve McNiven drawing of Sue Richards like teaching a class of students wearing like a cable knit sweater. It's just like there's like imagery that just like sticks with you for the wrong reasons. That kind of thing. That was a fun miniseries though. What's going to happen when Vanessa Kirby meets Namor the Submariner, by the way? It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Because the thing about that love triangle is that Reed is kind of a drip, but in the MCU, fucking Pedro Pascal. So I don't really see Sue turning her head for some fish man when you got Mando right there. Sorry. I don't see how that one's gonna work. But there was a thing I was gonna say. And again, lame spoilers, but like, in terms of things that I could have seen, like I like Invisible Woman, and I like the way that they've recontextualized some of her powers in like the last 20 to 30 years, where like she can use her invisibility. It's not just invisibility, it's force fields. And that, like, she can use her force fields, not all that dissimilar to like Green Lantern. Like she can form like, staffs and shields and, and do stuff with it. But like a trope that has really kind of, I blame Stranger Things for this subversion of a trope. When you're at the climax of the movie, and basically, spoilers, Sue Richards, the Invisible Woman, saves the day through the power of motherhood. Because like, don't mess with a mama bear, that kind of thing, which I like. That's terrific. But a postmodern take is that Sue is actually the most powerful member of the team, because of like what she can do with her invisibility force field powers. So in the movie kind of does a good job of portraying that. But the thing I was thinking while I was like picking nits, I'm like, I could have used a little bit of a nosebleed. Because like that became a thing in the comics, like, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, where like she would use her power so much that you just get like, whoop, just like a little bit of nosebleed to indicate that she's really straining and using her powers. But I think because post Stranger Things, I think it would look corny if it looks corny now when characters have nosebleeds for using their mental powers. Whereas, comics were rotten with that. And I probably should have said something about this maybe 4 hours ago, that the problem with these super legacy properties like Superman, like the Fantastic Four, so much has been influenced by them. It's the John Carter problem. What's John Carter? Well, John Carter of Mars was like, this series of adventure novels, and kind of like is an innovator of like sci-fi superhero stuff. Like a lot of what we know of superhero fiction, you can trace back to John Carter. And then Disney tried to make a movie out of that with Taylor Kitsch. I don't know who Taylor Kitsch is. The Friday Night Lights guy, the first Gambit, Battleship, Tim Riggins. But anyway, like, and audiences didn't want it because it's too derivative. At a time where you've seen Star Wars, if I've seen Star Wars, do I need John Carter? If I've seen The Incredibles, do I need the Fantastic Four? If I've seen Superman, do I need Superman? It's like, it's hard. So I think this version of the Fantastic Four is the best they could have done with what they had. I'm just interested to see what they do next and what they do going forward. And that, my friends, is where I'm going to leave it for now. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. No Studio Series 86 talk. I know I promised it on Tuesday, but goddamn, it's almost midnight my time. I need to go home because I still have to work in the morning. So, I want to thank you for hanging out with me in the chat, and I want to give shout out to folks in the chat tonight, Todd and Travis and Chandler, and of course cousin Jeremy. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I greatly appreciate it. That will wrap things up for this episode. Again, thanks for the ongoing support and for celebrating 10 years of Mike Seibert Radio with me. That anniversary is coming up week after next. I think I forensically figured out that August 10th, 2015 was the first time that I cracked open a mic and broadcasted on the radio all by myself, unsupervised. So I think that's what I consider to be the actual anniversary. But again, thank you for hanging out with me for 10 years across multiple radio stations and podcast platforms, and now live streams and stuff. And if you want more of this, if you want more Mike Seibert Radio, be sure and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever the hell else you listen to your podcast. And for even more Transformers content, be sure and check out our other show, Two Mikes, Too Furious, where me and Michael Anders used to review Transformers animated one episode at a time. We may be done with animated, but animated might not be done with us, so stay tuned for updates on that. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you'd like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. My name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio, and until next time, tell all or one, stay punk rock and make good choices. Mike Seibert Radio is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Our original theme song is written and performed by Lucia Fasano. Get her music on all streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and check out her Instagram at Lucia_Fasano. Our closing theme is A Nice Place to Visit by These Young Fools, used with permission from Michael Geissler. Check out Michael's website, bytourmusic.com, for more music like it. Special thanks to Andy Lita for our logos and graphic design. He is at GoGoAndyRobo. Become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group. And you can follow me on social media at Mike Seibert Radio on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And check out my YouTube channel for even more videos, and subscribe so you never miss a show and don't miss Two Mikes, Too Furious animated Transformers. Want to be a guest on the show? Send me an email, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.